Okay, attention everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone who is present today and those who are watching the broadcast, and I'd like to call to order the January 28th, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Education with all board members present today. And to start off, I don't know if we have our JROTC group or not from Point Loma High School. Does anybody know if they're here? Negative. Okay. So please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, to start off, I'd like a motion to adopt today's agenda with Section I, the Superintendent's Consent Agenda, to be considered next, following also the reports and recommendations of the Multi-Agency Task Force. And so other than that, we will proceed as noted. So moved by Trustee Beiser. Second. And seconded by Trustee Barrera. Please vote. And that is approved. We will now move on to some information here about today's meeting of the Board of Education. This is a business meeting of the Board of Education, which is held in public, so we'll be conducting our business in front of you, but we will not be engaging in dialogue with members of the audience. However, there will be opportunities for members of the public to speak on items that are on the agenda, and if you would like to speak for an item that's on the agenda, please go to the laptops that are in the back of the room to submit your public testimony request. And when your item is, your agenda item is called, you will be called up to speak, and we will tell you at that point how much time you have, depending on the number of speakers, whether it's 3 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute. If you want to address the board on items that are not on today's agenda, we will do that at the end of the meeting, and you can also sign up to the same place for that. Okay, and we also have translators available over here on the table to my left if anybody needs translation assistance. So first of all, does any, looking at the superintendent's consent agenda, does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, are there public speakers on any items? Ms. Stolz. Okay.
I'd like to move the superintendent's consent agenda.
Okay, moved and seconded the superintendent's consent agenda. If there are no comments, please vote. And student board member, your vote?
Student board member votes yes.
Votes yes, and that by the trustees, it's 5-0. Thank you very much. We will now move on to start off with our student presentation from La Jolla Elementary School about safe, collaborative, and inclusive school environment. The La Jolla cluster, which is in Area 5, Sub-District C. Mitzi Moreno. Well, let me first turn to Dr. McQuarrie, and you can introduce the people involved in this presentation.
Very happy to hear from our La Jolla Elementary School, and we have Mitzi Moreno who will do the introductions, and we've got new principal Stephanie to take over from there with our students. So looking forward to your presentation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good evening. Superintendent Martin, I have a little bit of a cold, I'm sorry. Dr. Evans, trustees. As you know, we've been working really hard to move students into the sphere of success as a district, and we've been doing that by re-engineering the experiences that they're having at school, in their classroom and in their school building. In the La Jolla cluster, each school is focused on improving access, instruction, and ownership for the students who have individualized education plans. Tonight, I want to spotlight the work that's happening at La Jolla Elementary, because what they've done there is they've done a really great job of getting to know each and every one of their students as learners so that they can change the experiences for students in their classrooms, in their buildings. All of the staff at La Jolla Elementary know that students learn differently, and it's their job to figure out just how they learn best. It is my pleasure to introduce the principal, Dr. Hasselbrink, and the education specialists, Courtney Sakai and Rebecca Habeck, who've been leading beside the team at La Jolla Elementary, always holding children front and center, and their learning front and center.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin, President Evans, Board of Trustees, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephanie Hasselbrink, and I'm so thrilled to be here tonight with my amazing education specialists, Courtney Sakai and Rebecca Habeck, and our incredible students who have incredible stories to tell you. At La Jolla Elementary School, we truly believe that all students can be within the sphere of success, achieving at the highest levels possible. Our education specialists and our general education teachers collaborate with each other to really provide the conditions that enable our students to thrive. Our teachers build alliances with students where they really get to know their students' individual strengths and their needs, and they provide the resources, tools, and supports that our students need in order to thrive. Our teachers really empower our students so that they can understand themselves as people and as learners, and so that our students can advocate for themselves as people and as learners. And it's just so incredible to see the work that our teachers and, of course, our students are doing so that our students can live their very best lives. So I'd like to invite the board to come down, and I'd like to invite our students to head up to the stage.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I came to La Jolla Elementary in first grade. I'm in fifth grade now. I have a hard time reading, writing, and spelling. School can be difficult because it takes a lot of time reading questions. I feel like I have to work more and I have to work harder than other people. I have to keep pushing to my hardest to try to find a route around dyslexia. At La Jolla Elementary, I've learned to ask for help. I'm able to use my computers to type my essays. I can use voice typing and spell check. My teachers let me go outside to dictate when I need to. I can use Bookshare to read my book clubs. Sometimes my teachers will read to me if my computer isn't working. I have many things to help me at school. One thing I'm most proud of is my math projects. Because of dictation, I can write essays like everyone else for my projects. I'm grateful for having that computers exist and that my teachers have taught me how to use them. I've learned so much since first grade to try to find a route around dyslexia.
Hi, my name is Evia. I have ADHD. This year I'm in 5th grade. I came to La Jolla Elementary School in 4th grade. I was kind of scared to come to a new school, but was excited to have a fresh start. School can be difficult because I'm always moving and I have a hard time focusing. Because of these difficulties, I often feel unintelligent. I'm also often self-critical. At La Jolla Elementary, I have learned to be a better writer. I'm able to use kickbands, standing desks, and I don't have to sit at the carpet. This has helped me focus when I need to move. I'm also able to hold Dracula, the snake in room 11. Because I have these things to help me at school, I'm most proud of my state testing scores. I got to test in the library with Miss Courtney, Miss Jessica, and Miss Liz. I appreciate all my supportive teachers that have helped me build my self-esteem. I'm grateful for Dracula, who calms me down, and I have learned how to handle difficult situations. I don't know what I would do without La Jolla Elementary.
My name is Victor Choi. I'm in 5th grade. I have been at La Jolla Elementary School since 4th grade. Before I came to this school, I was in Chicago. I have hearing loss, and I have cochlear implants that help me to hear. School is hard. There are a lot of people in the classroom. When they are all speaking, it's hard to hear what the teachers are saying. Sometimes I feel nervous. I might miss what someone is saying. I also feel scared that I might not do well on my work or get bad grades. Last year, I got to introduce myself to my classroom, my class, and tell them about my hearing loss. People were nice. This made me less nervous. My teacher helped me with my work in my classroom. I have a microphone I can't pass around so I can hear everyone. I can't go to room 11 to take tests. This helps me to be in a quiet place and get my work done. I am most proud of my work. I am used to the work after last year, and I feel successful because I get good grades. La Jolla helped me to be more successful.
Hi, my name's Mila. I'm in 5th grade. This is my first year at La Jolla Elementary. Before this year, I was at the French American School. School can be difficult because I have trouble reading, writing, and spelling. Because of these difficulties, sometimes I feel like I'm alone or I'm not smart. At La Jolla Elementary, I've learned to try to be more independent. My teachers let me go outside and dictate into my computer so I can be more independent and not have to ask anyone around me how to spell things. I am able to listen to my books. This also helps me because I actually understand what's going on. If I read it on my own, I probably won't read it correctly, so I won't understand it. Now I don't have to spend extra time doing work during times like recess where I could be playing with my friends. I'm proud of getting very good grades this year. I appreciate all my teachers that help me, and I'm grateful for all the technology that helps me. I have learned that I'm never alone. Thank you.
My name is Frankie. I am in 4th grade and I came to La Jolla Elementary School in kindergarten. I have cerebral palsy and epilepsy. That makes it hard for me to communicate with my friends and teachers. La Jolla Elementary School has helped me learn to communicate. I have learned to communicate with my friends by using a switch that helps me talk. I have great friends and classmates that always help me with my classwork and play with me at recess. I enjoy being around my friends and participating in all the cool things in the classroom like science experiments and being in the class plays. I also use my walker to help me participate in PE so I don't have to sit in my chair all day. I like to run around with my friends. I love to listen and dance to music. I am happy every day when I am in my classroom and I get to see all my friends. Being at La Jolla Elementary School has allowed me to make great friends and be a part of the whole school.
My name's Sadie. I'm in 4th grade. I have been at La Jolla Elementary School since kindergarten. I enjoy math and science. I enjoy math because I like working with numbers. In science, we always get to do fun, great projects, and everybody gets to be included. At La Jolla Elementary School, there are things like switches so everybody can communicate. I hang out with my friends at recess. One of my friends is Frankie. Frankie has made the past 4 years so much better because every time I walk into the classroom, I see Frankie smiling. He uses a switch to communicate. The switch has helped me too because without the switch, I would not get to communicate with Frankie. Because of my awesome teachers, I often feel happy and excited. If I'm having trouble figuring something out, I can ask for help. I am grateful for all the technology available to help kids like Frankie. I am also grateful that I get to use the technology. I get to learn computers and learn how to code. I get to play around with the sounds and backgrounds and make people move on the computer. School is so much more fun because everybody gets to be included in a part of the Room 8 classroom. Thank you for continuing to support our educational success. We love learning at La Jolla Elementary School.
Let's get a picture here. I don't need this. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that presentation. It's very good to hear from these students. It really reminds us once again what we're all about. Okay, let's move on now to item C2, which is the proclamation in honor of Pahari Jeffers. And do we have any family members here present?
We don't. Ken Msamaji, Fahadi's husband, sends his apologies. It's a little bit difficult for him to still get out to large meetings, but he's extremely appreciative of this proclamation tonight.
So this is a very important proclamation leading up to African American History Month, which we are going to also talk about a little bit later, but we're talking particularly about an African American hero who is a San Diego native, Pahari Jeffers. Pahari in Swahili means magnificent and rare, which is a very good description of Pahari. And she also has a very unique history in San Diego Unified School District. She at one point dropped out of school and then went back to school at Snyder High School at the time and graduated at the age of 17 in 1971 after a very difficult period, and then moved on to get a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master of public administration, and a doctorate in law. And then, but one of her crowning achievements was she worked with Cesar Chavez and her husband Ken Msamaji in co-founding the United Domestic Workers of America, which was a labor union, here in California, empowering home health care workers. It's the largest union right now in San Diego County and one of the fastest growing unions in the state of California and in the United States. It's also one of the first unions that was founded by people of color. She also worked with Cesar Chavez and the Cesar Chavez United Farm Workers Union. So what we wanted to really do, also her, most recently, her work in education, working with Educate for the Future, a community-based grassroots organization to promote education and public education in San Diego and in California. So we have decided to designate February 7th, 2020 as Pahari Jeffers Day in San Diego Unified for her long-term commitment to this community. And I would like to ask the staff to also make sure that this proclamation is sent out to all of the teachers, particularly all of the history teachers, so that they can, in the commemoration of African American history this month, can particularly highlight the information and the biography of Pahari Jeffers. Any other comments?
Thank you.
And our love and concern also goes out to her husband, Ken Seaton Msamaji, her lifelong partner. Okay,
Did you have a?
we have speakers on this item?
No, did you have a motion and a second? And
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Barrera and seconded by Trustee McQuarrie. If there are no further comments, please vote.
Student board member votes yes.
Okay, and that passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on now to the report and the recommendations of the multi-agency task force to recommend comprehensive strategies and protocols for interagency cooperation for the protection of district students. This is a task force that was set up a few months ago. We have some members of the task force here today. And first of all, I would like to enter, does someone want to make a motion on this particular
I'd
item?
like to move item H3, please.
Okay. Okay, and is there a second?
I second.
Okay, and now we will, if we could, at this point, to have the staff come forward, if the students could move to the seats behind, and then when there's no staff, to come back forward so you can participate with us. Thank you very much. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Martin at this point.
As Chief Marquez comes and joins us, thank you, President Evans. I'd like to thank Chief Marquez welcome up here to the dais, for his extraordinary leadership in this effort, along with Rabbi Lori Koski for donating her services as a facilitator for this task force. Every single member of the task force, and especially our 2 board members, launched this effort last fall, and we're here tonight to bring back our report. We convened the task force so that we could work together to close the gaps between all of the leading agencies across the county who are charged with the protection of children. It's right for the school system, in my opinion, to be the ones that convenes and leads this conversation across our city, because frankly, schools are the place where all of the agencies overlap. So I know our 2 trustees put this forward. We were able to convene the leading agencies across the county to have this conversation. I think San Diego should know that every single leading agency in our community charged with the protection of children is working together on this shared important obligation. We've come together to close any gaps and remove any doubts about the importance of our work. We're united and we're one in this community. The results of our work together will be that we'll have a safer city for our children, the children that we serve. Every single leading agency shared their own concrete steps that they plan to take, and they made these commitments publicly, together, to each other and to the entire city. Everyone who took part in our Action Summit brought with them specific and concrete steps that they plan to take, and they may already accomplish those commitments. I'm proud of the 19 recommendations that the task force is bringing forward to you for consideration this evening, and I'm grateful for the input of everyone who helped come up with these improvements. Upon your approval tonight, upon approval by the board, we're ready to put all of the improvements into effect. My most important responsibility as a leader of this district is to set the tone. My job is to set the tone and define the aspirations to which we will hold ourselves accountable. We want to be a district where every single person feels safe and empowered to report the mistreatment of children. We want our students, our parents, our staff, and our community to know that their reports will be taken seriously. They will be turned over to appropriate agencies for action, and we will disclose the status and disposition of any case shared with the Office of Quality Assurance. We want to strengthen our culture of reporting in San Diego. That's my message to anyone listening tonight. If you suspect something, say something. Thank you, and with that, Chief Marquez will add to some comments for our report out to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin, for the introduction. Good evening, Board President, Vice President, trustees, all of our staff, parents, and community members joining us this evening. As chair of this task force, I am here to present the highlights of the amazing collaboration and work that was completed on behalf of our children. The task force was charged with the following action. Number 1, identify the best practices among child safety institutions which have developed comprehensive interagency protocols and practices designed to protect children from sexual harassment and abuse. Number 2, review the district's external partnerships with other agencies involved in the protection of children from sexual harassment and abuse, and compare those efforts to the aforementioned practices. Number 3, recommend to the board necessary actions to create a comprehensive multi-agency protocol for the district regarding the reporting, response, and prevention of sexual harassment and abuse of district students. The task force met on October 16, 2019 and December 2, 2019. At the October 16 meeting, task force members discussed the many ways public safety and other regional agency partners could better collaborate to protect children from sexual harassment and abuse. Regional agencies shared their role, including current practices and points of interaction to improve interagency collaboration. At the December 2nd summit, each agency outlined specific actions they committed to take to improve collaboration for the safety of students. As you can see from the agency's planned actions and the 19 proposed recommendations to this board, the work of the task force was significant and meaningful. Throughout the task force meetings, members agreed to explore ways to close existing gaps and improve the sharing of information among agencies with one goal in mind, and that was keeping our children safe. As the chief of police for the second largest school district in California, I am comforted by the work of our task force. I believe the recommendations presented to you today will not only improve student safety, but will also empower our students to speak out and report abuse. It is important to stress these efforts not only improve circumstances for our district, but stand to directly impact and protect youth throughout our entire region, which includes the other 41 school districts, public schools, and charters. Caring for children should never be impacted by lines on a map or different styles among jurisdictions. I want to thank each of our task force members for their tireless commitment to the important work of this task force. At this time, I would like to welcome our regional partners to say a few words about their role on the task force. I would like to first invite Captain Rich Friedman from the San Diego Police Department.
Good evening, Board. I just want to say that obviously the protection of children is of the highest priority for the San Diego Police Department, and it was my pleasure to participate in the Board, and it reaffirmed our efforts to work collaboratively with our law enforcement partners as well as the non-governmental organizations that were part of the Board as well. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. Now I would like to introduce Tracy Pryor, Deputy District Attorney, San Diego County District Attorney's Office.
Superintendent and members of the board, Chief, it was our privilege to serve and participate, and we will continue to serve and participate and collaborate on this important task force. As the second largest district attorney's office in the state and the fifth in the country, we see so many and too many cases of child abuse, both physical, sexual, internet crimes against children. Our office has a full set of lawyers dedicated to a full caseload in this topic. And by the time a case gets submitted to our office, it's obviously too late. A crime has been committed. That's where this task force can get in front of it, swim upstream to talk about the preventative and the protective aspects of child welfare. And we were so appreciative to be at the table in this with square focus on how do we protect kids. It was my privilege to hear from the students. That was one of the most refreshing and enlightening parts in the role of a task force member. We heard what they liked, we heard what they didn't like. If we're going to get awareness out there, it can't be with a flyer, it's got to be through social media. I think we all walked away holding up a mirror to our systems and with a commitment to continue to do that and focus squarely on the kids. Recommendation number one, it happens to be my personal favorite, creating a culture of reporting. It says this district must remove any question and doubts on when, where, and how to report suspected child abuse. And the law is so clear. Whenever there's a reasonable suspicion, we have to err on the side of reporting. To the extent that our office can continue to serve in this role and continue to collaborate, it's our privilege to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. The next task force member to join us at the podium is Nicole Crosby, Chief Deputy City Attorney, San Diego City Attorney's Office.
Thank you, Superintendent and Board, Chief. On behalf of the City Attorney, Mara Elliott, the City Attorney's Office is so grateful to be at the table and very thankful for the work that all of the multi-agency task force representatives have done and communicated about and have worked together to come to this resolution. And know that we're committed to ensuring our children are safe in the community and especially in our schools where they are a majority of their days. We know that misdemeanor level child abuse specifically is a majority of all child abuse type crime. And our office handles misdemeanor crimes that happen in the city of San Diego, which is one of the largest cities in the country. The city attorney and the city attorney's office has designated a seasoned deputy prosecutor, not only for all of our child abuse cases as we habitually do, but specifically for cases stemming from school reports and stemming from school personnel or stemming from the school district, to make sure that there is consistency in communication, make sure that it's efficient and streamlined, and in addition to make sure that the children and the parents have an effective way to connect with law enforcement, because it is a difficult process when they have to engage in this system. So recognizing that misdemeanor cases are a majority of what we see in our community, we also recognize that many people don't know how to identify it. So we're creating a publication for posting at schools to guide mandated reporters and also general personnel on how to identify misdemeanor type crimes and give them more direction for this general reporting that we so desperately need and are seeking as a group. So we look forward together and working and creating and developing a much more streamlined method of communication, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. And our final speaker is Kimberly Giardina, Director, San Diego County Child Welfare Services.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Dr. Kimberly Giardina, the Director of the county's Child Welfare Services with the Health and Human Services Agency. Superintendent Martin, Chief Marquez, thank you so much for undertaking this work and including me as a part of the task force. I do think the task force has taken on very important work and really am thrilled at the recommendations that we're able to present today. Child Welfare Services is responsible for strengthening families and responding to allegations of abuse and neglect when the caretaker is the alleged perpetrator or when the caretaker has been negligent in allowing the alleged perpetrator access to the child. We investigate reports on abuse and neglect for nearly 45,000 children a year in San Diego. Schools play an essential role in helping us prevent, identify, and respond to abuse and neglect. So the work that we've undertaken as a task force in collaborative partnership to really examine our best practices and enhance our partnership and working together is critical to ensure the safety of the children in our schools. Child Welfare Services is really proud to be taking several steps in support of the recommendations, including enhancing our overnight operations at the Child Abuse Hotline to ensure a more timely response to reports that are received of abuse or neglect. We're also working with the District Attorney's Office and our law enforcement partners to enhance a trauma-informed approach to interviewing youth who've been abused or neglected through changes to our Child Victim Witness Protocol. We're increasing our utilization of forensic interviews over the coming years pretty extensively, and we're also going to be working with the District Attorney's Office to implement the electronic suspected child abuse reporting system. I appreciate the steps the board will be taking tonight in consideration of the recommendations, and I look forward to our ongoing partnership.
Thank you, Kimberly. And thank you all again for your time and your investment in keeping our kids safe. At this time, I'd like to turn it back over to our superintendent.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to all of our partners that are here tonight, especially the one with a little child. We appreciate children, and I know you're a mom with a young child here tonight. What you have here are the recommendations that we've brought forward, and all of there are 19 specific recommendations that we're bringing forward to the board, and we're open for comments or questions on that at this point. I don't know if you want me to read all 19 of them, but okay. All right, let me read them into the record so that you can have them as part of the work coming forward tonight. The first recommendation, which was a crowd favorite over there recently, she just said this was her favorite one, is we resolve that San Diego Unified shall take all necessary steps to create a culture of reporting. The district must remove any question and doubts on when, where, and how to report suspected child abuse and harassment, and ensure that every student, parent, and staff member feels protected and is informed about reporting. Second recommendation, district leaders should work with the PTA to jointly hold parent workshops beginning in May of 2020. District staff should update Facts for Parents materials to clarify that we have differing roles of SDPD and CPS in investigating allegations of abuse. District staff will share the attached document with important information on reporting procedures with all staff no later than March 1st, 2020. District staff should partner with all bargaining units to ensure the attached flyer is properly distributed and staff is provided with sufficient training on implementation. School site staff and department managers should not investigate allegations of child abuse and sexual assault, harassment of children by employees. Number 7, following the conclusion of any criminal investigations, the District Office of Quality Assurance should lead any district administrative investigations. Number 8, the district staff should immediately plan for the expanded role of quality assurance in the handling of abuse allegations and report back to the board on progress no later than July 1st, 2020. Number 9, for all abuse cases reported to the district's Office of Quality Assurance, complainants should be informed in writing of the disposition of their case at the conclusion of the process. Number 10, on an annual basis, the Office of Quality Assurance and Human Resources will conduct a review of any criminal convictions of district employees resulting from misconduct towards students and propose any necessary procedural changes at an open meeting of the board. Number 11, districts should improve transparency by issuing an annual report of employee disciplinary actions. Number 12, the district will update administrative regulations 5141.4 and 5145.7 related to allegations of child abuse and sexual assault/harassment to clarify these procedures. Number 13, the district should implement additional staff training related to employee ethics and integrity, including adult expectations for interactions with students and the above administrative changes. Number 14, endorse Assembly Bill 1929 on child abuse and neglect training, amending penal and welfare and institutions codes to allow internet-based reporting of child abuse and neglect by mandated reporters. The internet-based reporting tool would be in lieu of the initial phone report and written follow-up to CPS. Number 15, district staff should review volunteer clearance processes and employee hiring procedures to identify areas for improved identification of potentially problematic personnel. Number 16, district should facilitate a student-led campaign aimed at increased knowledge of reporting procedures. Number 17, school police should continue to lead the monthly roundtable with the San Diego Police Department and regional partners to receive updates on all cases referred by school officials to the appropriate agency. School police should further be identified as a single point of contact for other law enforcement agencies investigating allegations of student abuse. Number 18, when there is an incidence of abuse, including sexual abuse, involving the school district, students, and employees, the district will ensure, to the best of its jurisdictional authority, that every child who needs a forensic interview will get one, regardless of cost. And number 19, when a student has experienced trauma and no other agency has primary jurisdiction over the investigation, the district shall ensure the student receives support resources in a timely manner. Those are our 19 recommendations that we're bringing forward to you this evening, and as you notice, we put it all in what the district should do, and upon action tonight, these shoulds will turn into will do. We'll get done, but we're bringing it forward for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent Martin. Comments by board members? First of all, are there any public comments?
Yes, we have one speaker, citizen.
Okay. I would just like to remind citizen we have a regulation of only 8.5 by 11 in the building, so you can only have an 8.5 by 11 sign. I'm sorry.
You better explain that policy, because the policy was made to control audience control, because people have been waving signs, specifically the union, and I will not have you infringe on my First Amendment rights. I will not have you do that. I will not have you do that.
We'll discuss this further.
So let's talk about Cindy Martin being put in charge of protecting the children of San Diego Unified School District. It hasn't happened in 7 years. I've heard the same words out of her mouth in 2013, and it didn't come to pass. Instead, what I saw was a 19-year-old former student testifying on his birthday because his Spanish teacher had sexually abused him, exploited him, and he was forced and further traumatized because Cindy Martin forced this young man to be on trial. This is not to mention Cindy Martin making sure that emails are deleted. How convenient for Cindy Martin. The majority of these reports come through on emails, and she's wiped them all out. So if you've got a teacher that's been abusing and molesting kids for the last 20 years, she wiped it out. Let's talk about the lawsuit settlements. There's a confidentiality clause. So a student that has been the victim of a sexual predator in San Diego Unified, a sexual predator teacher, must keep silent when they sign a settlement. One little girl, this school district took it all the way to trial, subjected this family to such great trauma. And then on the first day of the trial, the attorneys for San Diego Unified, not the attorneys for San Diego Unified, the outside law firm that we paid, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars to, they were out in the hallway making a settlement. It wasn't going well. So if anybody thinks that Cindy Martin's concerns about the kids, it's not. It's all about her political image, and that's pretty much it. And the people that put this woman on the in this position, and as she likes to say, my board, Richard Barrera, Mike McQuarrie, Sharon Whitehurst Payne, Kevin Beiser, you've all kept her there. And she didn't do her job. She didn't protect kids. It's a sad day, but nobody should expect Cindy Martin to protect the children in this school district. She hasn't done it for 7 years, and she's not going to do it going forward. She's only going to do whatever she gets caught not doing right.
No other public comment? Okay. Board member comments on this task force? Yes, Mr. Barrera.
So first of all, I'd like to obviously thank Superintendent Martin and Chief Marquez for their leadership on this task force, and thank our agency partners and our teachers, our parents, our students, our stakeholders that put their time and effort into this. The recommendations, what I appreciate is the recommendations that really attack this issue from a lot of different lenses. There's absolutely preventive work involved in these recommendations, especially around creating a culture of reporting and really creating a culture of shining a light on situations so that there's frankly an understanding in this district that if you're here to prey on kids, you're not going to get away with it. You're going to be caught, and there are going to be consequences. And I think that is probably the most important, and it's why it's recommendation number one is creating a culture that kids are protected and caring adults are paying attention at all times. And that includes some of the recommendations around some procedures that Human Resources will be developing, including questions in interviews that may raise red flags about people who potentially are coming to work in the district. Monitoring in different ways the interaction between adults and students. The recommendations then look at the process of what happens when a student has potentially been abused, and a real focus on, number one, first and foremost, how do we provide care to that student and not re-traumatize that student as as we go through the process of investigation. And the partnership with CPS and with the Chadwick Center at Rady Children's Hospital in being able to conduct forensic interviews in a way that is supportive of a student while information is able to come out, rather than a situation where the student experiences more trauma through the process of investigation is very important. I think the internal focus on training of staff and also of parents and students is extremely important, and we heard that again and again from our teacher representatives, our parent representatives, our student representatives, that even though our policies and procedures are clear, and as Tracy from the DA's office said, the law couldn't be more clear, what we experience is in the heat of the moment, people may not be clear about how to react to a situation, and there may be ambiguity. Should I tell my principal about this? Hey, I've known this person for a long time. Shouldn't I give this person the benefit of the doubt? Is somebody else going to take the lead in reporting? And so that clear training of everybody in a school site or in any of our departments that work directly with kids, so that students, teachers, and parents, to the extent that information comes forward, know exactly what to do and when to do it, and it's not complicated, and there's a process that people should follow. I think clarifying those processes but doing it through ongoing training is extremely important. Then it's about the interactions. Then what happens with that case once it's reported, out from people within the school district. Number one, ramping up our ability in quality assurance to have people that are paying attention to the case and following up on it is extremely important, so things aren't getting lost in the cracks. The ongoing roundtable that the chief has with other law enforcement agencies gives an ongoing opportunity, to raise these cases. What's the status of these cases, and when are we going to have resolution? Transparency and reporting out resolution of cases to the extent possible, obviously protecting, the rights of students and employees. We've heard that again and again. People will report something and not know, well, what happened, and having that transparency, is extremely important. And so we know that the recommendations here, in some cases, there's work that's already been done and put into place, but many of these recommendations are about going forward and implementing our training protocols, ramping up our quality assurance. I think there's an important recommendation here, which is number 10, which is that when we have cases that have resulted in confirmed criminal misconduct, that we review those cases and learn from them, because that will continue to expose the gaps that are in our system. So it's a chance for us to get better, over time. Hopefully, not many, cases that come up, but when we have them, we need to learn from them. I think every time we have a situation, it does expose, issues that we can get stronger on. So the preventive culture, the training, the clarity of reporting, the follow-up, and the cooperation among the agencies, and most of all, the support for the students, I think is contained in these 19 recommendations, and I thank the members of the task force for taking this work on.
Thank you. Trustee Patterson.
Thank you. I completely concur with what Trustee Barrera just stated, and I want to start by thanking everyone who served on this task force. This is amazing work that's come out of this. These are recommendations that I think can make a large impact on this district-wide, and I specifically want to call out the students that served, Bryce Pablo Cook and Jay Cyber, for their help on this. A student's perspective is so important to ensure the success of a school district, and specifically on an issue like this. It's critical that we have students serving on the front lines, ensuring that we are creating a process that serves all students. And my second thing I would add is, just from a student's perspective, I know that common questions are, how do I report? What is my support? Who is going to help me? And what are my rights? And I think as we look specifically towards recommendation number 16, district should facilitate a student-led campaign aimed at increased reporting. I think it is critical that we continue to work together to ensure that this can happen in the proper method. I think this is a great start specifically for 16, but I think we can work to expand it and creating essentially a coalition of students working to implement something like this, since it's so important to once again have that critical support in order to ensure that this is implemented properly. Thank you.
Sorry, I take that as you volunteering to help partner with me on that. Thank you. And thanks for calling out the students for their participation. I appreciate that.
Any other comments? Just Dr. Rogers-Payne.
For me, this is a big step. Having spent 17 years investigating complaints and so forth here in San Diego City Schools for adults, it just grieves my heart to think about children. I know we have 100,000+ children, but we have adults around them and we have other students. And the system must operate together. It has to be reported. Often as an investigator, I got complaints from other folk about things that were happening. And my role was to immediately investigate it. And, you know, I guess people can tell I didn't tolerate a lot of stuff related to that. And that has to be our response. When we know, we immediately, we don't wait. Well, somebody reported this last week. No, we must get on it immediately. And I say that because there's still some frustration, because when I walked in this morning, it was, today, somebody was talking to me about a case that apparently it wasn't sexual harassment or anything like that, but it's related to a student that has gone on and on and on, and we just cannot have the culture of just letting things linger. I mean, you know, my response immediately is, what have we done? Why are we still waiting for this office over here to do something? Why can't we move it faster? And I don't want to seem like I'm frustrated by our slowness, but I am pushing the system. I'm pushing all of us to take the authority to move forward. When you hear something, don't just sit down and wait. And I want to I'm thankful for the fact that we're all working together as agencies. It shouldn't be, well, school police has it, and we're waiting for the city to do something, or we're waiting for the county of this one or that one. And in the meantime, we've got children and people who are suffering. So it's not something that I take lightly. It's something that I hope we all see that we need to move on it immediately. Outside, inside, other students, staff, whoever you are, if you know something, say something. Isn't that what you're saying? Please say something. And then the rest of us, when you hear about it, do something. Enough said. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Dr. McQuarrie.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I want to commend Superintendent Martin for taking the step. We know we had a problem. We knew we had issues. We know we needed to clarify agency responsibilities. We need to create a pathway in which we could address the issues that are so traumatic for so many people. And we set up this multi-agency task force. I believe the task force has met and clarified the issues. They've are working to coordinate the effort. And for me, as in Trustee Patterson has mentioned, item 16, I want to focus on item 17. Item 17 talks about making sure that this work that we've done and the effort that we are making proceeds and achieves the goal, and that we continue the regular meetings so that we can monitor the progress and make improvements. So I think it's a terrific, excellent step, and I want to make sure that it gets implemented and we can see the results.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I mean, the whole point of this, I think, started out of the issue of reporting and how is reporting being done or not being done. And one of the great things is streamlining the process. Before it was making a phone call, waiting a long time on hold, giving the report, and then within a day filling out a report and faxing or mailing it in. And so to be able to do this online is a really great thing. And we've always had the issue of letting people know about mandated reporting, but there's always confusion. You know, what does Child Welfare Services do? What does the police department do? What are the differences between what happens in the home versus what happens at the school site? And so if everybody's better informed about this, then we'll be a lot better off. And obviously we want to look at the preventative side. And so one of the issues here is talking about what are appropriate adult interactions with students, the types of things that lead to further harassment or abuse of students, and sort of nipping it in the bud. There's another way to look at prevention. Another issue as far as reporting is when we have seen cases in the past that have sometimes fallen through the cracks is that in most of these situations regarding behaviors at school, students know about it long before the adults know about it. So certainly if we get out to the students about a student campaign about reporting, that will make a lot of difference. And then the other issue is in terms of follow-up, because we just kind of, sometimes we think we might put things into a black hole and really what's going to happen with that information. And so as much information can be given back to the district about what is being done to follow up on a particular case or a situation is also really important. And also the transparency to really see whether we are improving, it's going up or going down, and I think that's on item 11, an annual report of employee disciplinary actions so we can really keep track of what's happening in our district. So there's a lot of obviously starting off with very good intentions, but there are very specific recommendations, including the whole issue of how the quality assurance offices can be involved in this and work in this so we can streamline the process that way too to make sure that our students are safe. So this is a great work by, as was mentioned before, by multiple agencies, so it's not each working on their own little turf, but everybody working together for the safety of students. So at this point, the issue we're taking action on, we have a motion to accept this report and recommendations so the superintendent can move forward with implementing all the recommendations that are on this report. So no further discussion, please vote. Student member?
Student board member votes yes.
Okay, and that passes 5-0. Thank you very much for all of the people who are involved, Chief Marquez and everybody else.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you to all of our guests that were here tonight.
Okay, we'll now move on. Are there any reportable actions to report from closed session at this time? Ms.
There are not.
Donovan. Okay, there are not. And administrative assignment, Superintendent Martin.
President Evans, you did have a speaker on D1.
On D1,
Yes, we have a
which is
speaker,
reporting
citizen.
closed session. Okay. Interesting.
Again, I'm asking that after closed session, when you have these lawsuits in closed session, you're discussing them, bring them forward and let us see the settlement agreements and let us see what's really going on. There's been far too much secrecy, and the public really has no idea of how many lawsuits there have been regarding sexual abuse in this school district and how much there has been spent on outside attorneys for it. Closed session reports should all be made public, and settlement reports should all be made public.
Okay, now we'll move on to administrative assignments.
Thank you, President Evans. We have one administrative assignment this evening, Program Manager for Adult Education, Nathan Sakdeva.
Okay, we're going to move now to our ASB reports. Thank you for your flexibility. We have 2 seats there, part of the time with staff presentation, part time for students, so we're kind of rotating back and forth, so appreciate that. And today we have with us Ayla Komasa, the ASB president of Point Loma High School, and also the Sandy Unified School District president of the Council of ASB Presidents overall, and then also today Julie Crawford, the ASB president at iHigh Virtual Academy. So let's start off with Julie, if you can tell us about some of what's going on at your school.
Good evening, my name is Julia Crawford and I'm representing iHigh Virtual Academy. We are an atypical school that lies in the heart of San Diego Old Town. Our school is particularly unique because our student population mostly consists of independent study students, and we do offer online courses across the district, but our on-campus population is quite small, usually about 50 students at most, I think this year at a time. So our ASB has to take a different approach, which might change our events every year. I know when I first started at iHigh in my sophomore year, we focused on small social events. But this year we are giving community service a lot of attention. We've already gone to an event at St. Vincent de Paul's, and we help feed the homeless, and we're also working with the Humane Society this year, Habitat for Humanity, and the San Diego Food Bank. Being a small school, we also do focus on a lot of fundraising since we have a small budget. We've had 3 done-out fundraisers, and we're currently working on our biggest fundraiser event of the year, which is our silent auction. Right now we're seeking donations from outside businesses, grouping them into baskets for our auction, which will hopefully take place in April, May. We have not have a set date, and we will eventually probably have one in the future. And with that money we receive, we hope to put on more events for our through our ASB for our students so that they can feel involved in such a small school. They often don't feel like they have a way to be involved unless we reach out to them like that. Thank you for having me. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much, and it's always great to hear from the different types of schools we have. You talked about being an atypical school. I would say it's a unique and creative school, and you have to come up with different ways of going about things than you do in a traditional high school, so we really appreciate what you're doing. And Ida.
Thank you. So I will be reporting on both Point Loma High School as well as the Council of ASB Presidents. First, for Point Loma High School, coming up next week, we have our 5th annual Unity basketball game, which is something we're really proud of at Point Loma. It's a great opportunity where the special education students on our campus have a chance to play alongside with our basketball and cheer athletes. It's a very popular event. It's a great time when the whole school can come together, and it's something that we really enjoy, and I know that the special education students have a wonderful time playing with our athletes. We also, in the last few weeks, we had our new family night and what we call Picture Yourself a Pointer, which is where we have potential incoming students come to our campus, and it's a student-led tours, and we kind of talk about our school, different opportunities we have on campus, sports, athletics clubs, all that kind of stuff, and so it's really great for them to hear about different opportunities that are available, and then we walk them around our campus, which was a little different this year because we are under construction, but it was good to point out a few things to incoming students about what they have to look forward to with our site modernization, so I know people are excited about that. And then for the council, at our last meeting, we had a presentation from the Youth Defense Council where they were presenting an opportunity coming up also next week, which is the Youth Candidate Forum, where they put together an event for San Diego candidates for mayor and board of supervisors that they invited all of the students to. It's a Q&A session with them and an opportunity to meet and talk to things in our city government that will be affecting students. So it's kind of catered towards that, which we thought was a really great opportunity. So the council was excited to hear about that, and so we've been working on advertising that opportunity to our students since that presentation. So everyone's really excited about that civic engagement opportunity. I think it was really great that we got to hear about it, and I really hope that there's a good turnout for that. We also, the Student Equity Ambassadors recently had a coalition for their goals for the year. I attend the Student Equity Ambassador meetings as an ASB representative, and that coalition was a great step towards our goals for the year and different things. So I want to thank all of the students and district employees that were able to come out. I I know Dr. McQuarrie was there, so it was really great to have that board representation, and Lee Dolgaroff and his team, and Drew Rowland and his team. I know that they were specifically in my meeting, and so I really appreciated having that district staff there. We are also, as the council, continuing our discussion with ASB finances, educating the ASB students on how to be more involved with that and how we can spend our high account balances to utilize that money to benefit all students, and what we can do with that. Also, coming up next week, we have our ASB Winter Workshop, which was initiated by the council for all ASB high school students to come together and meet each other and compare best practices. We'll also be having workshops on things such as finances, fundraising, advertising opportunities, and school spirit. So working together as district ASBs instead of just school ASBs to see how we can all benefit each other and what we can do to improve our practices at our own school. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Well, that's a lot. Thank you very much for all that you are doing with all of the ASBs across the district, and for both of you to be here. And I would certainly encourage you, as we're going through the items on the agenda, if there's something you want to comment on from the student point of view, please speak up. Just raise your hand, let me know, and we'll let you speak on that item also. Okay, right now we're going to move to the superintendent's information report.
No report from me tonight.
No report tonight. Okay, and board member information report. We'll stop with Trustee Beiser, Trustee Whitehurst-Payne.
I would just like to say that, well, I thought you would start with the student. That's why I was looking at it.
Okay. Poor protocol. I'm new at this.
I just want to say that Dr. Mike and I had the opportunity, and the superintendent came up for one day. We attended a California School Boards Association diversity conference that we have been working on for 2-3 years. Finishing up the second year, and we'll be working with the board on some of the things that have come out of that. So we're looking forward to the future on that. And I'd also like to say that we had one of our pioneers in the community, Dr. Carol Wayman, to pass, and he was really someone great in our community. Later we'll be doing a proclamation for him, similar to what we've done with Pahari. So he was significant. Some of you may or may not know that he was Nina Simone's sister, and from a little place called Tryon, North Carolina, Inman, South Carolina. But he was really a giant falling, and his loss will be felt greatly. Thank you for that.
And happy birthday, Sharon.
Okay.
Her birthday was yesterday.
Yes. Okay, well, now let's go to Trustee Patterson.
Well, first of all, to both of our student representatives, wow. You are really on top of things from both of your schools, and from a council perspective, I really love to see the active student engagement. It complements everything that from the Student Advisory Board, as you said, to the Student Equity Ambassadors, all three of our groups and our local school councils, what we all do in our message to try to get our student voice and our representation out there. And yesterday, we commemorated International Holocaust Memorial Day. This year is of specific significance as it commemorates the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. Despite this important event, it is shocking to me how few people understand what actually occurred. A study came out from the Pew Research Center recently that 45% of Americans didn't know that the Nazis killed over 6 million Jews, as well as millions of others, including minority religions and ethnicities and LGBTQ+ individuals. This angers me to no end, and I think as an educational institution, we have an obligation to ensure that this information is disseminated to our students through history and through any other methods. I think that our partnership with the ADL, and as we saw, I believe last meeting, with our No Place for Hate schools, that's a great step in the right direction. But I think we can continue to move forward and expand upon that to ensure that we educate the society of tomorrow to ensure that nothing like this can ever happen again. And Next, I would like to specifically call out items I-24 and I-25, our solar panels and our implementation of that. I think that is, to go to a happier moment, I think that's a wonderful step in the right direction, and I'm really glad to see us implementing another stage of our climate action plan, and I'm very happy about that. Finally, I would like to inform that I will be on a study abroad program, and I will be absent from the next few meetings if you don't see me, but I know I'm in great hands with our Council of ASB President representatives, and to be assured I will still be reviewing the agenda and discussing with the superintendent to ensure that student input is there. Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be watching us on the internet. Just a few hours off. Trustee McQuarrie.
So I'm highlighting the important effort our students, staff, and parents and community members are making to add art, culture, and beauty to their school sites that are representative of the school culture, values, and community. While there are many examples across the district, here are two recent projects, Mount Everest Academy and Ballard Parent Center. At Mount Everest Academy, led by Isabel Halprin, students learn about the process of mural making, gathered ideas for their school murals, established the themes and would best represent their school community, explored colors and painting techniques, and with the help of 50 students and community members, created this sun-to-sun masterpiece. Quoting from Principal Courtney Brown, staff and families are given the opportunity to literally leave their mark on the walls of their school. We received multiple comments about how the mural creates a warm and welcoming entrance to our school. At the Ballard Parent Center, students and family members from the Southern California American Indian Resource Center met with local artists to create a mural that would celebrate and honor the local Kumeyaay culture. The mural incorporates the imagery pertaining to the local landscape, cultural significant and sacred items, native stories, as well as tobacco plants. This project, which is an important item in the Native American culture, this project is an important opportunity for visitors to better understand the customs, traditions, and values of local Kumeyaay people, and will serve as a legacy project and help contribute to the growing visibility of the American Indian culture in our larger community. These murals of our schools, staff, and community and local artists add to the beauty and curb appeal of our schools and the warm, welcome feeling that we want to project when people drive by our schools and choose to send their children there. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Barrera.
Just very quickly, just wanted to thank the students in the Hoover High School Social Justice Academy for hosting a candidate forum for candidates running for mayor. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the agenda of a similar event going on sponsored by the Public Defenders Youth Council. But the Hoover students who worked with the Youth Will partnership were extremely prepared. They had worked with students throughout Hoover to develop the questions. They moderated the debate. They asked difficult questions of the candidates, and it was a spirited night. And I think it was exactly the kind of opportunity for adults to come and recognize where priorities of young people are in this community and how young people are engaged and are paying attention and have expectations of our elected officials. So, great night.
Okay, yes, 2020 is an election year for mayor, for president of the United States, and also for 3 seats on the school board. And as far as I know, the age requirement for school board must be the age of voting, which is 18. So by 2022, some of you will be eligible to run for school board. Okay. All right, let's move on to item E1, the Title I eligibility ranking for San Diego Unified School District for the year 2020-2021. This is the second reading. We presented this at the last meeting, and Superintendent Martin, would you present this item?
Thank you.
I'll move item E1.
It's moved. Is there a second? Second.
Thank you, President Evans. There hasn't been any change since the first read, other than the December 18th DAC meeting was very positive regarding the Title I allocations, and there was great support to continue the allocations to the schools in the same manner. I think I forgot to say that at the last
Okay. Are there any public speakers on this item?
Yes, we have one speaker, Brittany McKnight.
Good evening. My name is Brittany McKnight, and I'm here to speak about a very serious matter of which this board is already well aware. It has been brought to my attention that some very serious allegations have been made, which includes the misappropriation of $400,000 in Title I funds, failure to comply with the Freedom of Information Act and the California Public Records Act, as well as corruption. On October 8th, 2019, a request for public records was made to the district's legal specialists, which included, but was not limited to, the following documents: specific SSC-related paperwork, Title I budget transfers, email communications from specific periods of times, etc. As stated in the CPR Government Code Section 6250, access to information concerning the conduct of the people's business is a fundamental and necessary right of every person in this state. Thus, the requester was well within their rights to make this request. On October 17, 2019, the requester received a response from the district's legal specialist, informing the requester that many of the documents that were requested would be prepared in 10 weeks. 16 weeks have now lapsed since the initial request was made, and the documents requested have yet to be produced. In fact, thus far, only excuses have been produced, and tactics to delay or deny access altogether to the requested documents have been employed. In addition, no explanation as to whether or not the delays have come as the result of any of the applicable exemptions enumerated in the CPRA have been provided, nor was a notification provided to the requester beforehand that a delay would occur. It should also be noted that a series of correspondence via email has taken place between the requester and the district's legal specialist since the date of the initial request, and that this board was copied on the email correspondence from January 10th onward. Unfortunately, the district has a history of implementing practices pertaining to the request for public records that have been in violation of education codes, as well as a history of habitual violations of the CPRA, long delays, and a lack of response on very serious matters, including sexual misconduct, as noted by the Voice of San Diego. The silence from the board on this matter thus far is deeply concerning. The board should address these allegations and the requester's request for public records pertaining to those allegations as soon as possible. Lastly, it is imperative to ensure that the district is neither delaying, obstructing, nor withholding public records in any manner which is contrary to the law. Furthermore, there is a need to ensure that an abuse of power does not occur, but that full transparency and accountability do occur. Thank you.
Thank you. And based on that item, which is obviously a very important issue, I would direct that to the superintendent for follow-up. And if you could follow up with Ms. McKnight, as well as informing the board of the outcome of what information you can gather on this particular issue. Thank you. That was the only public speaker on that item. If there's no further discussion, Trustee Whitehurst-Payne.
I just would like to reiterate and ensure that we not delay the training, that we are sure the schools are being trained. We noted that before, but I just want to be
trained
sure.
In terms of?
The Title I training.
Title I, what their rights are, what the program is about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just rubber stamping things, but understanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm. What the protocols are and what the requirements are for serving on an SSC. And I think you're referring back to the last presentation when Mr. Liberto talked about this training is no longer an invitation, it's an expectation, and it's not something that we're expecting people to come to. We are coming to their SSC meetings with the training that they need, and we're agendizing it on their SSC meetings, and we are not delaying that.
Okay, without any further comment, please vote on this item on the Title I allocations. Student board member?
Student board member votes yes.
Okay, that passes 5-0.
I'd like to move item E2, the 2019-20 school plans for student achievement and categorical budget summaries for 162 schools.
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Are there any public speakers on this item? No, there are not. If there is no discussion, please vote on this item. Okay, student member?
Student board member votes yes.
Okay, and that passes 5-0 as well. And now we're coming to an information item, which is an update on the maintenance and service to schools of LCAP goals 6, 4, and 7, I believe.
Thank you. Change the seats.
Okay, we're going to do a rotation of the ASB seats and the staff.
And I'd like to introduce
Musical
Drew
chairs.
Rowlands, our Chief Operations Officer, and John Hensley, our Director of Physical Plant and Operation, to present this LCAP item, which is an update on the maintenance and services to schools. This is related to LCAP Goal 6 and Goal 4, 4.7 specifically, to give you information around how we are putting in place well-orchestrated district-wide supports and services and communication with an emphasis on maintenance to schools, but also LCAP Goal 4, which is related to attractive, clean, and well-maintained schools. And this comprehensive update is designed to give you an overview in 10 minutes of how we're accomplishing these two big, broad goals. It's nice to have you both up here tonight.
There's a mistake on our agenda. It's listed for 3 minutes, but we'll have the standard 10-minute staff presentation.
Really fast.
Super speed.
Good evening, Superintendent, trustees.
You already got the ding.
Their time's up.
Tonight, Mr. Hensley and I would like to give you an update on some of the initiatives underway at PPO. PPO's role in service to school fits into LCAP Goal 6, well-orchestrated district-wide support services and communication, and also LCAP Goal 4.7, clean and well-maintained schools. We embrace continuous improvement, always working to improve how PPO serves the district. Turn it over now to Mr. Hensley to detail some of the current initiatives underway at PPO.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Martin, President Evans, trustees. Thank you for inviting us to present tonight. We are grateful to have this opportunity to share our initiatives supporting safe and positive learning environments. How about that? When people think of physical plant operations, some tend to think of the typical maintenance items such as a dripping faucet. Our role is much broader. We'd like to share a few facts with you about the reality of what is required of the dedicated team of custodians, landscapers, tradespersons, environmental, energy, equipment repair, and safety staff at PPO who keep our facilities safe, clean, and operational. One of the biggest changes in building maintenance over the recent years is the mingling of the electronic age with everyday life. Changing technology requires the PPO team to work in partnership with integrated technologies, facilities planning and construction, and to stay current with changes to federal, state, and local building codes. For example, there are roughly 62,000 smoke and heat detectors deployed across the district. In order to ensure fire alarm equipment is working properly and remain code compliant, each device must be inspected annually. Any detectors deemed deficient will be repaired and replaced, and the system will then be checked to verify it is fully operational before signing off. Technology touches everything from classroom instruction to the environmental comfort. In short, PPO is a steward for keeping facility assets from becoming district liabilities. As the current school year kicked off, PPO leadership set a goal of consistency for themselves. This reduced silos and established a culture where forward thinking and better communication allow for work to be planned, preventing breakdowns from occurring, or predicted with a solution already at hand.
Looking at the quote on the right side of the screen here, and particularly this second sentence, which states, "The physical and emotional health of students and teachers depend on the quality of the physical location, which makes establishing safe, healthy buildings essential." This and similar research continues to inform us on the importance that facilities hold in the learning process, solidifying PPO's necessary role in the district.
Our planned action to increase efficiencies in managing PPO resources will be a change to the culture of previous years. We'd like to highlight two of the goals for you today: shifting staff to better support schools and the creation of scheduled maintenance teams. Our previous structure was developed to enhance communication and balance span of control. To accomplish this goal, PPO was divided into 4 regions or zones. Each zone was responsible for corrective, preventive, and capital maintenance of roughly 3.7 million square feet of facilities. With improved efficiencies as the driver, the new alignment was closely tied to the type of maintenance work to be performed while maintaining the existing lines of communication. We'll take a closer look at the distinct work types in the next few slides. Corrective maintenance. Corrective maintenance is reactive in nature and could be any maintenance performed to correct a deficiency, such as malfunctioning theater lighting or resolving high temp alarms at the central freezer. Today alone, we received 324 corrective work orders. In the first 6 months of this school year, we have received over 45,000 work orders, which is much higher than other years. This is primarily due to inspectors being properly trained in the use of California's facility inspection tool, which supports our quest to make sure all sites are up to the standards required for the success of our students and staff. Of those 45,000 work orders, 69% are corrective in nature. Our goal is to reduce the corrective burden through consistent use of planned maintenance practices. Preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance is performed to maximize reliability and performance. A large piece of becoming proactive is performing preventive maintenance. This allows our techs the opportunity to identify and address deficiencies prior to failure. As the graph denotes, we are showing an increase in preventive maintenance performed in the first half of this year as compared to the last 3 years. We are proud of the improvement made so far this year in preventive and planned maintenance, as it is a good indicator that our efforts in staffing assignments is working. Scheduled maintenance refers to routine maintenance performed during a predetermined window. Examples of routine maintenance items are replacing a stained ceiling tile or fixing that loose toilet seat. Our initiative to create 2 dedicated teams to carry out scheduled maintenance twice per year at each school was developed with input from our principals work group and feedback received at the principals' informal meetings. The first team was launched in August. The second team was launched in October. Both teams include a carpenter, electrician, painter, plumber, a building maintenance worker, and a crew leader to ensure routine work orders are addressed during the visit. Results are tracked and adjustments are made to maximize the effectiveness of the team. The benefits include site awareness of the scheduled visit and a pre-visit conference to ensure site concerns are prioritized.
The last piece of the maintenance work is the function of maintenance projects. These are capital projects that add life to buildings and their major systems and components. In coordination with facilities planning and construction, maintenance projects are implemented when there is a need and opportunity to create improvements to our facilities on a larger scale, especially when we can access funding other than general funds. The LED lighting project that we show as an example is funded by the California Clean Energy Jobs Act, and it's a perfect example of the multiple benefits we receive, providing a better learning environment for students with more consistent lighting, reducing energy costs and general fund expenses, and with its longer life, reducing the current and future maintenance backlog. Other examples include restroom remodels, which we know is one of the biggest concerns among students, camera and clock replacements, single point of entry projects, and many more.
We will now transition to our second planned action of communication and collaboration. We realized we needed to improve our communication with stakeholders if we were going to create the optimum learning environment for our students and staff. We have been focusing on implementing ways to act instead of react so that we can provide information and develop meaningful collaboration with site administrators and custodial staff before there is a crisis. I would like to highlight our monthly work order reports that are now sent to principals and lead custodian staff at each school site. Via monthly emails, site staff are able to review and confirm work orders are received, the priority assigned, and make adjustments as needed without having to log into our reception desk for review. If a work order is no longer needed, for example, it's a duplicate work order, the site will inform PPO, who will close out the work order, which allows PPO to focus only on viable work. The site staff is also able to respond to the email with any questions or concerns, and it is forwarded immediately to the appropriate PPO staff for a response. This service has been well received by the school sites. We have already seen progress as we've begun implementing some of our communication goals, but we know we still have work to be done. We are trying a variety of different ways to improve communication and build stronger relationships with our customers. Beginning with new administrators, each year we extend an offer to all school sites to meet with PPO leadership. Our goal is simple: establish strong relationships and ensure we are capturing their facility concerns and including their concerns in our maintenance plan. We continue to work with our principals group, who have been instrumental in helping us shape our service model. Our efforts to provide an action-centric, user-friendly website are wrapping up. We hope to go live in the next 30 days. We also are working internally to improve our communication with our staff, particularly sharing kudos with the entire PPO family, and through wellness events, moving forward the culture of appreciation for all that our dedicated team does. In closing, we strive to earn the trust of the communities we serve each day. We realize there will always be areas where we can improve. We want you to know we'll look forward to the opportunity and we'll accept any challenges needed to make those improvements. We take serious our commitment to be good stewards of the resources provided and to be responsible for providing the very best service available with them. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. I didn't hear any bell go off either. So, any comments or questions from board members on this particular item?
We actually have two speakers on this item.
Okay, public speakers first.
We have Jason Babineau and Tanya McMillan.
Good evening. My name is Jason Babineau. I'm the proud principal of Hoover High School. First off, Mr. Barrera, I want to thank you for giving a shout out to our students for leading the mayoral debate. They did an incredible job. I'm certainly proud, but definitely not surprised. Students have the answers. We just need to ask them. I truly believe that. I think Mr. Hensley asked me to speak by default this evening because of the prevalence of communication I've had with the PPO staff beginning in 2017. His staff has become very familiar with me and Hoover High School as we have worked together to support our learning community. I say learning community very intentionally because, as Mr. Hensley mentioned, the physical environment our students, faculty, staff, parents, and partners work in directly correlates with the self-concept, expectations, and efficacy of all learners. I'd like to speak to this department's support of our ongoing work to create the culture of excellence that our students and staff deserve. When I originally sat down with Mr. Rollins, Mr. Hensley, and their team, my message was clear. We need to be better for Hoover High School. PPO was fully on board and have worked in alignment with our school goals with professionalism and a commitment to serve. The team takes pride in their work, and with that comes positive change. I commend PPO's leadership for building systems and processes that maximize their staffing. Mr. Hensley and team have made it a priority to effectively communicate with principals and seek feedback to refine their structures. Serious concerns that I've brought to PPO are addressed in a timely manner. Finally, there is clear accountability throughout the team, and I've appreciated the level of follow-up on a variety of projects that we have taken on. PPO is doing their part. If there is consideration to add resources to this team, I can assure you the leadership and systems are in place to add immediate value to our students and staff across the district. Until then, I want to thank you, PPO, for your service to our incredible Hoover community, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Babineau. And our other speaker.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin, Board President, and all the trustees, and the amazing PPO staff. I just wanted to add that I've had the good luck and fortunate I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you who I am. I'm Tanya McMillan, principal at Dewey, and I have been there for 10 years. And when I first arrived at Dewey, John was my savior. Mr. Hensley, he came in, met with me, walked the campus, and immediately started to help change the environment for kids. We have had a strong relationship through PPO for over 10 years now. They have always been responsive, they've always been helpful, and they have done whatever they needed to do to come make the environment for my students better. I never feel like I'm alone in that charge, and I want to say that he's asked me to be on the principal work group, and that was exciting because on behalf of other principals, I was able to say what principals need on the floor and on the ground running, and then they made it, leadership of PPO made it happen. So thank you very much for that, and I just wanted to say keep doing the great job that you're doing, and I agree with Mr. Babineau that the leadership is definitely in place.
Thank you very much. Okay, board members, questions, comments. Trustee Winters-Payne.
I would like to offer commendations to you all, too. This is the one department that most of the time the schools don't want to see folks from downtown, as they call it, downtown here, but they love seeing you all. And you do a great job. For folks out in the audience who don't know, they just bring in a whole team, and they just kind of, the schools are really excited about getting things done. You know, there are times things are just hanging over loose ends and so forth, and you're there and you do a good job. And to hear the principals today confirm that is really great, because I've never heard anything negative about your department in all of my experience with San Diego Unified. Contrast that to site issues. Maybe if that culture could roll over and rub into some of the site issues so that we get the same quality of service would be helpful. I don't know what we could do to make that happen, but one Sunday morning I told you the story of how I left one church and somebody stopped me to tell me about something wrong at one of the campuses outside, externally. And then another one, I went to another one, and someone saw me in the parking lot and told me something else about another school. And it's just the ongoing upkeep. You all are doing great, but you're not there all the time. And so I just hope the system will respond with the same level of quality so that we can represent us all well. Thank you.
Trustee Beiser.
You know, great job. Of my entire tenure on the school board, PPO has always been 100% reliable. And so, you know, the comments from some of the people in the school sites, the principals, the administrators, that are having to solve problems and deal with all these challenges and issues that they have, knowing that they have a department in our school district, in our organization, that can help them solve those problems and fix them is really, really relieved. One thing, though, in your presentation that did kind of make me wonder what kind of support the board can provide. You had mentioned that due to increased awareness of the reporting systems and things like that, that this year, so far, this year we have 45,000 tickets.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, while I have no doubt that PPO and your staff are wonderful people and can really, you know, jump through whatever hoops that we throw their way, I have to be completely honest with you. I'm a little bit concerned that, you know, you might be getting overwhelmed by some of the challenges that are addressing some of the schools in terms of maintenance. And I'm just kind of curious if you could kind of share with us a little bit about how are you dealing with that massive increase in tickets.
So thank you for the question. So typical years past is about 74,000 work orders, and now we're tracking to about 90,000 work orders this year. Okay. Part of that, as presented, is about is us doing it to ourselves with our inspection tools. And so, but it's part of the healing process, if you will. We have to be able to identify all those needs at the school sites so that we can get them fixed. If we don't identify them, they're just going to sit out there and linger. So, right. So we're going to have to continue to do this. So it might get a little bit uglier this year or next year as far as the number of work orders, but we're going to address them. We're going to turn them into projects. We're going to get them on the right funding source so that we can attack them in a timely manner.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Trustee Brewer.
A couple of things. One, how are we coming with the work orders on the smart boards? I know that that's been an issue that we've talked about before. So, is that what you're going to ask? Yeah.
But we have a rule of not repeating.
Not repeating. Yeah. So that's my first question. And my second question is just more around with the twice a year regular visits. What have you noticed in terms of the ability to more efficiently go after some of the issues that may have previously been lingering at schools?
All right, so as far as the scheduled maintenance teams, we're going to have to staff those up. Our initial results are okay, but in our mind, we're going to have to staff it up. So we're going to move from roughly 50 to 66 people on the corrective maintenance side, and so that would mean another double what we have on the scheduled maintenance visits right now, and see how we do performance-wise with that. We know we have to increase. That's the adjustment we're going to make there. Okay.
I think I would offer also on the scheduled maintenance, one of the things we saw was, and one of the things this has done is resolved, is these things are a little bit of a lower priority, and so they kind of fall, and they go from this month to next month. And just the idea that you can tell a site, no, when they come in March, that's going to get taken care of. I thought we saw that as a big victory in all of this, and just being able to get to that. But John's doing a balancing act and a juggling act with all of this to kind of keep it all going.
Yeah.
So.
Smart board.
I'll have to get you an official response for smart boards. I thought we were close to the end of it for PPOs.
Okay. Yeah, so some of those are contracts this evening that we saw, right?
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, from just a student's perspective, I know you guys, your department is stretched very, very thin, so I completely understand that. But I just, specifically, this is for you, Ms. Detsy. I completely understand your frustrations with your broken smart board. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, since we do see issues at our school site, at my school site specifically, of technology repairs and the difficulty. As you said, it can go for months on end sometimes. But I totally understand that you're stretched thin on staff. Just a personal observation.
Trustee McQuarrie.
Yeah, following the rule of no redundancy, I still want to commend you for the work you're doing and the important achievements you've made. The increased work orders I think results from the quality of work and the expectation and you're doing. What we need to do is the concern is, and it was mentioned by Jason, the principal at Hoover, and implied by Tanya at Dewey, the need for resources, support for your department, and I'm wondering, as well as we improve our buildings and do the modernizations and the upgrades and the upkeep, does that add to your work or does that make it simpler?
Take that one?
I'll give it a shot. So there are times when construction impacts us. PPO is responsible for looking at whatever the issue is. Whatever it happens to be, PPO is the first call. So if there's construction going on at a school site and a wire's been cut through and the PA system's no longer working, PPO has to respond to that first. And then we have to come back and say, okay, that was related to construction, so now it gets turned over and made into a guaranteed work order or something like that. So yes, construction does impact us, but we work closely with our friends over at FPC to make sure that we're doing our very best to limit that as much as possible.
I think also I think it was one of the items on the PPO facts, but as you're all well aware, as we have air conditioned the school district, we have a lot more air conditioning units out there, and we have staffed up in our air conditioning mechanics, but it is keeping pace with that. I think also, as you get into some of the beautiful buildings that FPC, Lee and FPC are building, there are also very often more complicated buildings. Right. And there's a lot more complexity to the systems. It takes more training on our side, it takes more development, and a lot of times it takes more effort. And then one last one, even when you have that brand new car, you still have to go get the oil changed. So there are those kind of things that still happen. So, it's all that coming together, and again, John plays the traffic cop to make it all work.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know you do a great job with very limited resources, and like you said, the air conditioning, the arts facilities and so forth are just adding to the maintenance. And we're in the situation where the taxpayers have generously supported us in terms of the bond measures to really upgrade and add to and improve our facilities, but the state has not given us the money for operations, just for maintaining the buildings, for technology and so forth. I remember when I was running for the board in 2008, I visited a high school after school, and some students were standing around saying, "Look how dirty this school is." They don't even care. They don't care that our school is this dirty. This was 2008, not now. But you know, that is the point you were making about what is so important. And we certainly do not have enough money to maintain the buildings the way they should, to clean them the way they should, to maintain the landscaping. So I have an unofficial document here, which from the back of the envelope, which I came up with some deficits, which is basically, if we just added half an FTE of a custodian to every school, that would be about $5 million. If we added one FTE for about every 10 schools of landscaping, that would be another $1 million. And then the maintenance deficit, I mean, this involves the trades, it involves lots of materials, and I'm just wildly guessing that's maybe $5 million. So if you had that kind of money to upkeep and maintain our schools, what would be different? I mean, how often would the classrooms be cleaned? What would be the speed of responding to repairs and so forth?
I would focus first on items closest to the classroom, like you've mentioned, cleaning of the classrooms. I think that's very important. That would be my first goal, is to restore custodial to every other day cleaning.
What is it currently?
Every fourth day cleaning.
Every fourth day.
Is the standard.
Yeah.
Some schools are lucky and are cycling on every third day, but our average has shifted that way and probably is closer to that every fourth day right now.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of this sort of larger maintenance issues, because Drew was referring to the fact that, you know, there are things that are just not absolutely urgent that don't get done that eventually happen. How would that be handled differently?
Well, I believe we would go to spending a week at each school site to correct those low-hanging fruit, that low-hanging work order status. So right now, we're spending a couple days at a school site during a routine maintenance visit or a scheduled maintenance visit. If we could get 1 week at each school, that would help us knock those down.
Right.
So I need 4 teams to do that.
Yeah.
So I'd have to double the amount of folks that I currently have on scheduled maintenance visits.
So because what we're talking about is adequate cleanliness and maintenance of facilities. This is not some sort of luxury model or something like that that I'm talking about.
And I think curb appeal is also important for our school sites, and so for us to be able to have well-maintained lawns and shrubs, that's really important, and so we struggle with that too.
Right, I remember talking to a local, years ago, city council person who said, if I had children, I would never send them to the school in my neighborhood because of the curb appeal issue you're talking about.
But it's also a health issue when you talk about classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that part makes me cringe. I know a lot of people now, the teachers are taking in handy wipes and all of that, but it just, every fourth day.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the children coming through and all the diseases and so forth, I mean.
Right. So my point is, we're every year we're balancing the budget, but it's at a cost, and one of the first things we let go is the buildings, and because we just have certain priorities.
Dr. Evans, we actually do have an update on the work orders on smart boards. Torrin Allen is able to provide that, so you don't have to follow up if you'd like that now.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Allen, would you mind coming up to give us that update? Thank you.
This is one we hear about a lot. I mean, in years past, I've heard my bulb went out and I haven't been able to use it for a while.
Good evening, everyone. I think this is the first time I've got to address the board and superintendent up here on the dais. So,
welcome.
Nothing like starting off with smart boards.
Your favorite topic.
Yeah, so admittedly, it has taken longer than in the past. There's a bunch of different variables there. Some of them include getting parts. We're talking about Promethean boards that are now 9, 10 years old. Those are the ones that are failing most often. We're in the process of replacing those with the help of Lee's team. Over 1,000 were replaced this last year. Another 1,000 are due to be replaced this year. We're trying to keep up with the quantity of repairs, so we roughly have about 100 that are still needing repair right now, but compared to the previous years, we're doing much better. To give you an idea, it's less than half of where we were this time last year, so we're moving a lot faster. Parts are getting a lot harder to get, so anytime we can buy as many bulbs that we can for those 9, 10-year-old devices, boards, we are, because that causes delays. But overall, we're doing better with the plan of replacing over the next 5 years. So after this cycle, we'll have 2,000 of 6,000 replaced, with more to come over the next 4 years.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation of that item. That was an information item, so we're going to move now to the board consent agenda, and we're going to pull item F4. Is there a motion on items F1 through 3?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second? Okay, moved and seconded. No speakers? Okay, please vote on this item. Trustee Patterson?
Student board member votes yes.
Okay, that passes 5-0. And now we'll go to item F4, the resolution in the matter of recognizing February 2020 as National Black African American History Month. Do I have a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Trustee Whitehurst-Payne wanted to comment on this resolution.
I did.
Do we have any public speakers on this item? Okay. Let's go ahead with the public speakers first.
Yes, we have 3 speakers on this item: Brittany McKnight, Francine Maxwell, and Charles Alexander.
Okay, you will each have 3 minutes. If you can see here in the front, there's a green light for the first 2 minutes and a yellow light for the last minutes, but you each get the full 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Brittany McKnight, and I'm here to speak in favor of the resolution in the matter of recognizing February 2020 as National Black/African American History Month, and encourage the board to pass this resolution. The resolution demonstrates the district's efforts to promote both diversity and inclusiveness, and acknowledges the importance of Black/African American history, as well as the contributions of African Americans and other ethnic groups. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight just a few of the passages from the resolution. As stated in the resolution, whereas the truth must be disseminated and American history must include an accurate account of the contributions of African Americans and all ethnic groups, not just in the month of February, but all year. And whereas African American history curriculum and materials are available to all San Diego Unified educators. The contributions of African Americans as well as other ethnic groups should be acknowledged and celebrated year-round. And I would encourage the district to do more to ensure that this happens at all school sites, and to refrain from practices such as Colonial Day, which was celebrated at Longfellow and resulted in parents and children being traumatized. As for African American history curriculum and materials, while providing educators within the district access to such materials is commendable, I would strongly encourage the district to do more to include the community in the development process associated with the curriculum and materials, to ensure that the curriculum is implemented at all school sites, that the materials are used and incorporated into daily lesson plans, not only during Black/African American History Month, but throughout the year. Lastly, as stated in the resolution, whereas district-wide activities highlighting the contributions of African Americans will be offered each school day during the month of February, including musical performances, leadership workshops, movies, a Harlem Renaissance Fair, etc., a calendar of which is available on the San Diego Unified School District website. In contrast to previous years where no acknowledgement of Black/African American History Month appeared on the district's website, the district's website now reflects the aforementioned statement to a degree. However, in order for the statement that the activities are district-wide to be accurate, the activities of more schools other than the 7 which are currently listed should be listed on the district's website, as to demonstrate that Black/African American History Month is being celebrated throughout the district at all school sites, and ensure that the more than 121,000 students that are served by the district are provided with the opportunity to partake in that celebration. Thank you.
Our next speaker.
Francine Maxwell and Charles Alexander.
Francine Maxwell, District E resident. What you're being passed out is a newspaper called The Voice and Viewpoint that you made a point at to not put an ad in as you attended all of the breakfasts for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. There's not an ad in there. And so for this district to hand out raises, well-deserved raises to the teachers and the classified, you made it a point to go to all the breakfasts, but not make it a point to be in a special edition. We had the Filipino press papers. We have La Presa papers. The neighborhood papers are extremely important to celebrate diversity of our children because they're in a lot of homes. So I'm making sure that all of you have a copy so that you can plan for next year to make sure that the second largest school district has an ad while you're attending all the breakfasts. I also want to make it clear that we asked to make sure that as we celebrate Black History Month, that the flag is raised just like the LGBTQIA flag. The website is with links. And as you're going to do a resolution, make sure that the resolution isn't watered down when it comes to Dr. Carol Wayman. Dr. Carol Wayman called San Diego the Mississippi of the West. So let's make sure that we quote him correctly. Let's make sure that we celebrate some of our living legends, Reverend Dr. George Walker Smith. Let's make sure that the history books of living history is also disseminated in 2020. We have work to do. We have some things that are occurring that are still being swept under the carpet. Although we are still engaged with quality assurance, we don't hold light that quality assurance is going to make a quick turn because we've seen what they've been doing since their implementation. So I want to make sure that as we make sure that our audio is matching our video, that we're just not continuing to do resolution after resolution. All cultures should be celebrated equally. So now that we know that you've walked in the different parades, we need to make sure that the pictures are shown that you walked in the Alpha Dr. Martin Luther King parade. There was an extra parade that was in the community at Dr. Martin Luther King Park. Let's make sure and let's show the pictures if there was a booth from family engagement. So I want to make it clear that there's many opportunities to celebrate African American history, and all children should be celebrated, not just for a month, but the website, all 365, should have some type of celebration for them. So I hope you enjoy your free paper.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander.
How you doing today? My name is Charles Alexander. I really didn't know what to say today because of this resolution, but I want to take the time out to talk about 2 points. One was the task force that we seen earlier today. I guess around the same time this task force was formed, we also had a task force that we created at the Lincoln Cluster that was called the Task Force for Creating the Blueprint for the African American and African Descendant Students. Because of budget cuts and things of that nature, that task force was cut, so that blueprint went out the door. Well, a few educators, principals, and some teachers teamed up with I Am My Brother's Keeper, and we created a book called We Are Our Ancestors' Keeper. And the book it's not just a book, but it's a blueprint for early childhood development and any other development in our schools. And another thing that I wanted to talk about was this young man talked about, I think it was, the percentage was 45% of students don't know that about the Holocaust. Well, there's about 80% of African American students and African students that don't know that their contribution before slavery, because every time that we deal with Black History Month, we always start from slavery on up. So there's a big gap in our educational system when it comes to that. We've created a curriculum for not just African American, but for all cultures. And we ask that you take a look at this, because we don't want to just be celebrating African American history during the month of February, the shortest month, when we contribute every day of the year. So I thank you again for your time, and you guys have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further comments on this resolution? I mean, certainly I think the points are well taken, that this is a month to celebrate Black and African American history, but we want it to be throughout the year. And I think in comparing that, for example, to ethnic studies, we have some pilot ethnic studies courses, but we want ethnic studies built into the entire curriculum, not just to be separated out. Trustee Whitehurst.
First of all, I thank you for the opportunity to share. I want to thank the community for keeping this before the board, the school district. And I just want to say that for me, it's about sharing my culture. African Americans, we contribute daily. We came here. We existed before then. And when you look at history today in America, if you pick up any typical textbook, you will not find the proper representation of any other ethnic group other than the majority culture. And I think that's unconscionable, because history is about telling the truth. And I mean, like right now, folks are trying to say certain things didn't happen. Even today, for current history that will be seen 5 days from now, we cannot do that, because history is about telling what happened, whether we like it or not. We have to tell the whole story. So for me personally, when we discussed this topic before, it shouldn't be a time set aside for African American history, or time set aside for the Holocaust history, or on and on and on, or Latinos, or whatever. But the question is, what really happened, and who contributed? And tell the story as it is. Some of you may have heard about Corey, I think his name was Corey Miller, who apparently was on the boat for Pearl Harbor. And he was an African American who was a gunman. But just because he wasn't supposed to be shooting to protect the country, they did not call his name, and for years he was not recognized. That is not right. He was an individual, his family knew about it, they have that history with them. If we're going to tell the story, tell it all. People can then decide what they want to do with it, but we have that obligation, that responsibility to tell the story as it is. That's how we don't make the mistake again, because we know the facts. We know what's really happened. Tonight, I'm really excited because Rob Robinson is there with his wife, and some others from Broadway Heights waving their hands over there. They came to us, and they just really helped us to get together with our communications director, the superintendent, and I went out and they did a presentation. We want our schools to engage. They have something phenomenal going on there. I don't know if any of you've gone, or you saw it on TV when they did their presentation. But we have something really exciting there. We're bringing it here. I-19 talks about our relationship now with them. That's only the beginning. We should be doing this all the time, weaving in history and the way their methodology of using URLs and other ways to expand. It's the cutting edge of how we'll see things noted in the future, rather than having only tangible books. we had Carol Rosell who contacted me, and she said, I have a museum I'd like to share. So that material should be out there. I want to thank Charles 3X Alexander tonight for presenting, because the book that you saw going around, and you all may not have my book.
You have to give it back? Just kept passing it down.
But we're beginning that process with him to see whether or not we can get these materials out there to help at all levels. At all levels, every child. We just need to be sure that we're telling the story. Whatever the story is, let's tell the story accurately. Then we don't have to be ashamed. Today, with the children here from La Jolla Elementary School, I thought most of the time those children are hidden. But they're a piece of the fabric of La Jolla Elementary School, and every school. Think about it. They're the hidden children, but they have a story to tell too, and they're part of this society. So we should not ignore any group. Whatever the contribution is, we need to embrace it and to make it ongoing and not just a certain time. We begin with February, but we're not going to stop. We're going to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee. Okay, let's vote on this resolution. Student member?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 5-0.
I'll move item F5.
F5 is the resolution in the matter of support for Santa County Public Defender Youth Council. Is there a second? Second. Second by trustee Barrera. Are there any public speakers on this item? Item F5?
Yes, we have one speaker, Eva Schultz.
Good evening. My name is Eva Schultz, and I am on the San Diego County Public Defenders Youth Council. I am here today to speak about the Youth Candidate Forum that my fellow council members and I have been working to put on for this coming February. We have successfully put on this event for the past 3 years and are very appreciative of the support given by the San Diego Unified School District. This event will take place over the span of 2 nights and will be held at the Neil Morgan Auditorium at the Central Library downtown. The first night will be February 5th, and we'll be holding the mayoral candidates, and the second night will be February 6th for the Board of Supervisors candidates. This forum is a nonpartisan event, and all candidates running will be present. During the forum, candidates will be asked questions put forth by high school students from all over San Diego County. Last year, we received over 350 student questions. Events such as these are vital, as many of my peers and I will be eligible to vote in not only the March election, but the November one as well. Even for those who are not yet 18, it is important to establish the habit of educating oneself on local government and policy. It is necessary to remember that although we have the privilege of voting, it comes with the responsibility of research and familiarizing oneself with what will be on the ballot come Election Day. Our Public Defenders Youth Council is very excited to have the support of the San Diego Unified School District in achieving our goal of encouraging the youth of today to be civically engaged and aware of local government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have more youth participation in the mayoral thing, and also in the resolution it points out that they're going to be offering free food and beverage to all participants. So it's going to be a good event at the public library downtown. Trustee Patterson.
Thank you for coming, by the way. It's just so important to have a student who's actually serving on this council speak out about this. It's such an important issue, and we as youth in San Diego do deserve the ability to participate actively in our elections. We might not be able to vote, but as you said, come March and November, many of us will be able to vote. And it's important to get out in the community and to make clear that our voice really, really does matter, and that maybe you're having difficulty listening to us now, but come to the ballot box and suddenly it'll be a little bit different. So thank you so much for your work.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's vote on this item. Okay, student member?
Student board member votes yes.
And that passes 5-0.
I'd like
Okay.
to move item G1, operational matters for the board, readoption of California School Board Association board policies.
Second on this. This is a standard procedure each year for us to follow the CSBA guidelines for our procedures. No public speakers, and if there are no comments, please vote on this item. Okay, and that passes 5-0. Also student member first.
Board member votes yes.
And it also passes 5-0 after the student member voted. Okay.
Move item G2, proposed 2020 legislative principles and priorities.
Okay, motion on this item G2. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Patterson. Okay, legislative principles and priorities. At this point, we're going to have Enrique Racho, who's going to present this item. Superintendent Martin.
Thank you, you just did my introduction.
Okay. I thought of you at the last minute.
You made it back just in time. It's nice to have you with us here. I know you spend all of your time and work up in Sacramento advocating and supporting the work of the district, and tonight's item is to put forth the legislative priorities so that we get to have the full board have a discussion about them, and then Enrique will know how to best support and advocate for San Diego Unified in his work up in Sacramento. So that's what this item is intended to do. We began to speak about it at our last governance meeting, and now we're taking it to action tonight.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Is the green light there?
Green light? Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin, President Evans, trustees. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to be a part of the San Diego Unified team and to take the student success stories of San Diego Unified to Sacramento. I think those are very important stories that we need to communicate to our decision makers, our partners in Sacramento, to keep moving the ball forward. And what you have before you today are the 2020 policy principles and priorities. In prior years, the board has adopted policy principles and priorities for the Department of Government Relations to proactively take positions on issues pending before the California State Legislature and Congress. As you know, the state legislature reconvened on January 6th. And we now have the proposed budget as well. And soon we will see legislators introduce a flurry of legislative proposals ahead of the bill introduction deadline. And so before I move any further, I do want to be clear on the purpose of the document. It's not meant to be comprehensive. It's a framework. And I do want to thank the board for our discussion in November that really helped inform the policy principles and priorities. Vision 2020 as well helped inform this document and provided a strong foundation. In fact, the 3 principles of achievement, learning, and engagement that you see in the beginning were derived from Vision 2020's 5 key areas of focus for San Diego Unified. So thank you for your feedback. And your feedback also helped with the policy priorities as well. With that, the policy principles and priorities will serve as a way to respond to the more than 2,000 bills that will likely be introduced this year and serve as a guide to prioritize the efforts of the Government Relations Department. You'll notice that the school funding portion is probably the longest paragraph on that document as well. So thank you for that robust discussion that we had. With that, I'll conclude my presentation. I need to return to Sacramento tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Okay, thank you very much. Board members, comments or questions? Trustee Barrera.
Yeah, I just think it's important that we take an opportunity to summarize on our budget priorities, Enrique. And do you want to kind of just go through those 4 priorities quickly?
Sure. Yep. One of the areas that we're looking at is an augmentation to the cost of living adjustment consistent with prior figures that we've seen come out of the administration. The second component will be looking at pension offsets. It's been an effort that has been successfully done in Sacramento, and so we'll be taking a second look at that. The third area that we're waiting for more detail on pertains to special education. There's a proposal a new proposal on a funding formula, and we are looking and assessing at other areas when it comes to special education funding. And finally, a lot of the priorities that the governor has identified in his budget are aligned with a lot of the work that San Diego Unified is doing. And so we're looking at how we can maximize the intent of the governor here at San Diego Unified.
Right, thank you.
And I think under the funding, the fact that we are strong supporters of the local control funding formula, we're in favor of the formula, not in terms of what the dollar amount is for the base grant, because if it was adequately funded, then the supplemental and concentration grants would be able to do what they're doing. And this is particularly important because there's so much lobbying, and certainly for legislators having pet programs, we could very easily descend into a whole mishmash of categorical programs where these dollars for this and these dollars for that, which takes away our flexibility. And so we found that it's sometimes more difficult to advocate for general funding as opposed to something that sounds really good in physical education or the arts or whatever it is, but the fact that we can decide that at a local level is really important. And then the other issue is in terms of being the second largest district, but our coalition with other big districts, so that we can really not just kind of follow everybody else, but really lead the way and coming up with proposals and then getting other districts on board to support us on that. And you obviously have good connections in Sacramento to do that. Yes, Trustee Winters-Payne.
Just a quick point. On the third page of that report, it talks about the funding in comparison to Wyoming and these tiny states in the sense that they don't have the population. One of the ongoing issues that we always hear about is we're not being accurate when we say that we're in the bottom among states that are funding schools. So if we can just keep that message going, the truth about it, like you talked about the cost of living. I know cost of living here is higher than it is in Wyoming. Unless I'm assuming erroneously, but...
Well, they're just referring to the size of those states, not their funding.
But, I mean, what they're paying per child, though.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is listed there, I'm sorry, that's my mistake.
Spending per child.
Right.
So...
Right.
That's what we really need to focus on. The fact that the reality is when you make adjustments, it comes down even more.
Right.
Because folks don't understand that. They hear a lot of money, but they don't realize we have a lot of children.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, in terms of the direct comparison to other districts, is that we are about number 38, not in the bottom 10, in terms of the actual dollar amount, which means that 37 states in the United States spend more money per pupil on education. But then if you look at the Rutgers University study, which basically looked at cost of living and the actual economy of the state, they basically gave 4 states an F, of which California was one. So that's a pretty dire sentence in terms of where we're at in terms of funding. Okay? Thank you very much, Enrique. Yes. Okay, and now let's move on to item G3.
We need to vote.
Excuse me, I'm sorry if we didn't vote on that. Please vote on that motion. Moving along too quickly, student member.
Student board member votes yes.
Okay, and the board vote is 5-0. And now a motion on item G3.
So moved. Preliminary proposals for allocations of facilities to charter schools under Prop 39.
Second.
Okay, this one is pretty easy because there are no changes in terms of what's happened from year to year in any significant way. So if there are no public comments and no comments from board members, please vote on this item. Okay, student member?
Board member votes yes.
Votes yes, and that passes 5-0. And now we're going to move to an information item, just to follow up on our previous conversation about money, the update on the governor's budget for 2020-2021. And staff members will come up, Greg Odinger and Keisha Deeb.
Good evening, Superintendent Martin. Ms. Thede and I are appreciative of the opportunity to share more details with you regarding the governor's proposed budget. So this evening, we will lay out the state summary along with potential implications for our district. To begin, let's get ourselves oriented with process. As we sit today, we are reviewing the text from the January proposal with the expectation of more detailed specifics in the trailer bill language, which we do believe will arrive on or after February 1st. At that point, we will have more details in terms of metrics that are part of the governor's proposed budget. The remainder, as our colleagues in government relations mentioned, the remainder of this winter and spring will be significant advocacy and input from the legislature prior to the next version of the budget the governor will release in May. So with that, let's turn to the governor's budget. At a very high level, the governor's talking points for education include aspects here, such as classroom teaching, special education, high-need schools, and high-quality food. In terms of the district's potential impacts, we are going to start with a few concerning elements that we are seeing thus far. With regard to the early discussion, I concur with the local control funding formula and pension relief. Our multi-year projections, which again are back to first interim and second interim and budget adoption we mentioned, our guidance is from the state and from the County Office of Education, and the state gave us the guidance of a 3% cost of living adjustment for 2021. The January proposal thus far from the governor's office is actually showing a 2.29 reduction, and in a district with the budget the size of ours, that equates to, we're expecting a $6.8 million adjustment that does not help the students in our district. Further, we are hopeful that we were hopeful and we were hearing there would be additional pension relief in this budget. However, the current approach, based on January again, appears to be a simple reminder that the 1920 adopted budget from the state helped decrease both the 1920 liabilities and also the 2021 liabilities. So it's a nice reminder that last year's budget helped us for 2 years. While we appreciate that, we do have continued liabilities that are increasing, and we are hopeful the governor and the legislature will add, in fact, new pension relief into the 2021 and beyond budgets. Overall, upon review of the budget, we see alignment. Many alignments with the major initiatives and systems that we already have in place here at San Diego Unified, especially in alignment with Vision 2020 and the board's initiatives and the superintendent's goals. When we look at the what the governor's prioritizing on his list, we do see parallels, and some of these examples are listed here, including some of the work that he actually cited in his press conference related to the work at Harvard. Those same researchers that he called out are actually individuals that we have already been engaged with on significant work, specifically at the Logan Memorial Education campus. So it's really not so much of the what of the priorities are, it's more of the how, and then in fact, the how much we are funded. So we understand that there may also be districts that have perhaps not prioritized all of these same areas and will in fact need to create new systems. However, here at San Diego Unified, we have built successful systems and already achieving results in these same areas. And we would really hate to see a well-intentioned approach from the governor's office in fact end up causing us to frankly tear down currently working approaches that are having benefits for students and adults and across the system just to rebuild new ones. One detailed example is agreement on the need for high-quality classroom teachers. And Ms. Thede is going to share some of these specific details that outline an example of how with the local control, we are already doing this work.
So this is one budget presentation that I got to talk about something that I love to talk about, which is the work that we do to recruit and retain high-quality teachers. So as Dr. Ottinger mentioned, an example of the way in which the governor's budget aligns with our priorities is a focus on quality teachers. This focus on teachers isn't new for our district, as we have very specific strategies that I've had the pleasure to talk to the board about many times to recruit and to retain our quality teachers. The Learning Policy Institute validated our work and cited San Diego Unified as a positive outlier in making gains for students of color as well as their white peers. And if you've had a chance to review the report, some of the best and most exciting parts of it to me is that the report validates the work that we've been doing in San Diego. Specifically, it discusses the preparedness of teachers is a major predictor in student achievement, especially for students of color. So some of the things that we can show that anybody can see when you look at the source I used for this slide is DataQuest, so it's publicly available data. It's not something I had to make up, I just looked it up. And so some of the things that show in our data is that we maintain quality classroom teachers through our targeted recruitment retention process. 62% of our educators have a master's degree in their field of expertise. The average years of experience of teachers in our district is 15 years. In our last reporting period, 98.4% of our teachers are fully credentialed. And the other reason why that's not 100% is it's just the way that you report that. So the remainder, that's the difference between the 100% and the 98.4, is that that difference of people, they have a credential, but they're working toward a credential. So technically they're called emergency credentials, limited credentials. And what those credentials do is basically say, I as a teacher have demonstrated that I have enough education to start a program, to take classes, to take an examination. And the state says, yes, we see that you've demonstrated that. And so we'll give you a time period to earn another credential through coursework or examinations or both. So that's the only reason why that's not 100%. We've had 0 misassignments. And a misassignment is important because a misassignment means that you've assigned somebody who doesn't have the appropriate credential to teach. We don't have that. We have less than 1% teacher vacancies on an annual basis. And we also, as everyone knows, we have very generous compensation and benefits in particular. So we are doing great work on our system, and we're really looking forward to see how the governor's budget will enhance this particular priority.
Thank you, Ms. Leedy. We appreciate your insights and this great example of the work that is already happening at San Diego Unified. So at this point, it is clear we have a significant opportunity for advocacy. The trailer bill language, as mentioned earlier, the legislative hearings, moving towards a final adoption in June. Again, we are concerned that the currently proposed restrictions that we're seeing from the governor's budget on the local control have the potential to put the district in a place where we have an unnecessary sequence of events. We hope to build upon our current systems and processes that are working, and for that, we are going to, as the board already approved, advocate to make sure that the, again, well-intentioned ideas of the budget, we can actually have the local control to continue our own processes versus forcing us into significant change that is unnecessary in the system. So at this point, we are going to, I'll just remind that we have a high-level timeline, which was already discussed earlier. So we'll pause for questions, and thank you.
Questions, Mr. Barra, Trustee Weider-Spain, and then after him.
Thanks, Greg and Acacia, and I appreciate your presentation because it dovetails on Enrique's advocacy priorities. The key areas that you're highlighting have direct impact on our ability to get through this budget cycle without further cuts. And again, we've talked often about, we look forward to the day in the state when, budget time is about investing in doing more of the things that we know work rather than just simply staving off cuts. But, Greg, you were clear if the governor or if the final state budget fully funds the COLA that was originally proposed by the governor last year, that's a difference of nearly $7 million, to our district. If he and the legislature again, provide pension relief, and particularly on top of Prop 98, that's another $7 million. The $900 million that he's talking about investing in special education, number one, by updating, a formula that's been outdated for years and years, is important. But number two, we need to stress the need for equity in funding for special education. When we have, districts like ours and other, large urbans in particular, that have a disproportionate number of moderate and severe students that require more services and more expensive services that we are funding ourselves in our contribution from our general fund, but could certainly use relief. So if we had an equitable distribution of that extra $900 million that he's proposing, that could be upwards of $20 million, of additional support for our district. And then, I appreciate you pointing out the importance on this $900 million that he identifies around, teacher recruitment and retention. And very important that there's not some one-size-fits-all attempt, throughout the state, to get districts to try to fit within the needs in a district like San Diego Unified, and your statistics are really fantastic, Acacia. Less than 1% vacancy. We don't have a problem right now filling our positions and filling our positions with skilled, credentialed teachers who stay in our district. We recognize that we benefit in that way as compared to, some of the areas of rural California and other areas that, of course. So the approach in rural California to recruitment and retention of teachers needs to be much different from the approach in a district like San Diego Unified, where we essentially are saying, let us continue the work that's already succeeding. And therefore, if that $900 million is invested in a way that allows us to continue doing the work that we're doing, that's another $15-20 million. So you add these things together, and this could be, if the final state budget comes out in a way that's supportive of the work in our district. That same amount of money, we're always talking about the need for additional funding, but just within, the amount of money that is allocated in the governor's January budget, that same amount of money could be $50 million to the good for San Diego Unified or $50 million to the bad. And so us being clear about why we're advocating for the priorities that are important to us, because we've got demonstrated positive student outcomes, is really critical. And I appreciate that your presentation and Enrique's presentation have us on the same page and being clear about the work that we need to do over the next few months in advocating in Sacramento.
Thank you, and I confirm, I agree with you on that. I want to just say something about the quality teachers example. And I want us all to think about this, and starting with me. When we say that, we really don't have a problem with teachers, credentialed teachers. If you and I visit a school and they tell us we don't have 15-year experienced teachers with master's degrees and we're struggling to get teachers, that's a problem. And it's a message that I hear from the Crawford and Hoover cluster, from some of the folks in the Lincoln cluster, et cetera. So this is true. It was true when I was in HR. We always had a good retention rate. People want to come to San Diego. We had a good workforce, not a lot of turnover. But I just want us to think about that in terms of the larger message that we're sending, because if I'm at a school and I know that I have substitutes in my classrooms or whatever, that's a problem for that school. And it also impacts what's happening to the children at that school. I'm just being the person tonight to just say all of us need to just think about that, because we don't have 100%. But where are those 1.6% folks? Are they in schools where the children need them most, or are they across town?
So we actually had to look at that last year as part of one of our audits, and one of the questions that was asked is, do we have unequal distribution of teachers who have the emergency credentials versus the full credentials? And when we did that data poll, we didn't. The other thing that we, when I talk about less than 1% vacancy, that is a true vacancy. What that does not include is people who just have things happen in life. So we will never have every human come to work every single day. People get sick, people have babies, people just don't feel good in the morning. There are things where you will, in an organization that has 17,000 employees, not everybody's going to show up every day. So some of the things that we hear, we have to think about, because they're not always I have a position budgeted and I don't have a human in them. That's what I mean by vacancies. The real difficulty on the ground every day is just the people piece. The place where we have to take care of people who are out sick, and we have to take care of kids at the same time. So for instance, my children in 1 year both had teachers who had whose teachers were out on maternity leave. That's tough. As a mom, you're like, dang, and I have 4 kids, so I've been on maternity leave before. So there's a conversation that we have been having as a team of what supports can we put in place for schools when there is somebody out on leave. In particular, Sarah and I have worked really hard on teachers, ed specialists who are out, because that is really difficult, because there's a very few ed specialists in the world, and then the number of folks who actually are have the credentials who we have as visiting teachers to actually do that work. So there are things that we have done internally to try to manage that, but then there's just some days as a site administrator, you're sitting in a site and the flu bug hits and you got 4 people out. It's just a mess. And so we have to also think about vacancies in terms of, is it a day-to-day vacancy or is it a real teacher shortage problem? And we have it honed down to, we know exactly where our shortage areas are. They're incredibly difficult areas to fill, but we spend the entire year recruiting for people for those. And so when I talk about vacancies, I want to be clear that I'm talking about actual budgeted positions that have somebody not there. I'm not talking about illnesses that sometimes carry on for months.
And I think we all understand that. But when I go to a small school and half the staff is having a problem with staffing, I don't find that when I go to La Jolla. I don't find that when I go to Scripps Ranch. That's a problem that we as a system must address.
It's actually a legislative problem, because our laws require that movement happens based on seniority, and we have contract language that requires movement and seniority. So if that's something that we need to consider, then that is something that is not necessarily something that staff can change without support in other areas.
Well, all I'm saying is it just sounds like platitudes, and I understand that. I spent 17 years in HR here in San Diego, so I understand that. But I'm just saying now, as a citizen, as a human being, it's not okay. It is not okay for us to talk about, how many legislators do we have here? What do we need to do to change the law? And this isn't directed at you. It's not direct. we're having meetings about budget and how can we get more money. What do we need to do? Do we need to negotiate something with a contract to address those schools? What do we need to do to help those children? That's what I'm talking about. I can't stand to see these poor kids who come to school with nothing, and then we just kind of say, well, we can't because of the contract or because of this language or that or whatever. Those children don't care about that. They only come bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and they want to learn. They want to learn. We saw that, didn't we? They want to learn, but we're not providing the maximum what we could for those children. And we have to find a way to fix it. That's all I'm saying. We have to find a way to fix it.
Add on a little more information about the budget, and there is this $4 billion pool of, some of it being shifted into various categorical types of funds that we need to just have go into the general fund. But this is just to get by. It's just for an austerity budget. And I keep saying this is not the true deficit that we are facing. So if you'll indulge me just for a minute, I'm just going to tell you some of the things that I came up with. Everybody agrees that we do not have enough counselors. If we added half a counselor at every school, that would be $10 million. Everybody agrees that special ed is inadequately funded, that we don't have enough personnel, that we have difficult caseloads, class sizes, and so forth. And to actually get that into a better situation would be $20 million. We have problems with class size, and I'm not talking about drastic reduction of class size. I'm talking about when we have hard caps and we need to offer another course, but we can't have a smaller class because of that, or just little tweaks here and there is another $20 million. We just heard tonight about the maintenance. If we had a half-time custodian added to each school to get the classrooms cleaned, that's $5 million. To keep the lawns mowed and so forth, with just a few more landscapers, would be $1 million. I said before about the maintenance deficit, $5 million. Transportation, we wouldn't have to have such extreme bell times. We could have more local, safe transportation for our students with another $5 million. We have a great K-3 literacy program, which is piloted with a few students here and there, but we haven't been able to take it to scale. Just to have a few staff and professional development is another $2 million. We have a great pilot of restorative justice, but to take it to scale and have the right staff to do it, we need another $1 million. We talked about summer school the other day and how it's only for these critical people who are not going to graduate from high school, to offer it to other students at a minimum of $5 million to open up more summer school slots. We know that our music and arts operate on just an absolute shoestring budget, and just to have the instruments, the supplies, to upkeep the theaters and so forth would be another $4 million. In terms of safety deficit, we've cut back on security officers at schools and other safety issues would be another $1 million. We have an ethnic studies pilot program that if we were to have the proper professional development take it to scale is another $1 million. We don't have enough office staff in the schools to keep the offices operating. And if we just had half a half-time person each school, that's another $10 million. We have so many schools who are being deprived of a vice principal because of the size of the school, and to add those on would be another $4 million. We know that we have inadequate nursing and health tech staff, so if we just added on a one-quarter nurse to each school, and a few techs, that would be $6 million. For the stability of the classroom, whenever we have situations where the enrollment in the school goes up or down, we have to take teachers out and move them around and create instability in the schools. Just to have a stability budget there would be $10 million. Materials and supplies, if we only gave $25,000 more to each school just to buy a few supplies, that is another $5 million. To have more professional development without taking teachers out of the classroom as much as we do, that's another $5 million. And then the other issue is just to provide a basic cost of living increase increase to all of our staff. That's always at the bottom of the list because we're just keeping everybody in place and we don't even look at that. We don't have it budgeted for. That's another $33 million. So right there, the staff is going to come up with what our deficit is, whether it's 40 million, 80 million, whatever it is to maintain the status quo. That's why we're talking about all these lobbying for these particular funds just to meet that deficit. But on top of that, we have another $153 million deficit. So I would challenge the staff, if these numbers are not right, if they are not reasonable, if they're too low or too high, to let me know, because when we're talking about the deficit, we're not talking about the fact that our classrooms are not kept clean. You know, we balance the budget, but we don't balance out what needs to be done in the schools and give the kids the help they need. So when we're talking about the budget each time, and we're talking about what the calculated deficit is, I want us to also talk about what the operational true deficit is in our schools. None of these things I mentioned are pie in the sky or ideal. It's just adequate staffing to do what we need to do. So with that, I rest my case. Okay. Okay, any other comments on this?
You have one
Does anybody disagree with these items?
President Evans, you have one speaker on this item.
We have one
Citizen.
speaker. Okay, one public speaker.
So you guys have gotten so much money. Every year, millions and millions have been poured into San Diego Unified since 2013, and you've lost 1,000 to 1,500 students a year. You want to tell the public that we're 37th in per pupil spending, but I looked at some reports, and it's more like we're 22. The reason that you're seeing some of these buckets of money are because districts like San Diego Unified did not take the money that they were supposed to spend on disadvantaged children and shifted that money into other areas. Look at the state auditor's report. Right now, you're receiving nearly $18,000 per student. And I want to remind you that you're spending $1.2 million a day on school improvements. And like the PPO people just told you, school environment is very important for learning. So you can add that $1.2 million per day and divide it per 100,000 students, and you're going to find out you're more like $20,000 per student in spending. The computers didn't come out of the general fund. It came out of property tax money. That credit card that you guys just keep jacking up housing costs. Right now, if a young family buys a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in San Diego Unified taxes are $100 a month. And for some people, it makes owning a home unreachable. And for people in commercial buildings, that increases their rent another $80 a month. And it hurts. It hurts their pocketbooks. So you're sitting here crying that you don't have enough money, but you're talking to the citizens of the state, of the highest taxed state. How much more, John Lee Evans and Richard Barrera, do you want us to be taxed? Because I've been watching you guys give raises to the bureaucrats. I've been watching Cindy Martin give jobs to her friends. No need to go through a process. You just have to know the right people on the school board and you have a job. How about if we get rid of Carmina Dud Diploma Duran and her quality assurance office? Run a report and see how many complaints you've had on that office. Run a report and see how many lawsuits have resulted because of the quality assurance office. What this school district really needs is an internal auditor, and it needs some truth. So start telling the public the truth. It's mismanagement of the budget. It isn't that you lack money, because you've been getting more and more and more money every year. It's a matter of priorities and how you're setting your priorities and where you're spending it.
Okay, that's it for public comments. Let's, excuse me, where we're at.
I'll move item H2, the authorize staff to proceed with development and implementation of captive insurance program or establishment of a joint powers authority to provide for non-insured retained general liability and workers' compensation exposures of the district.
Okay, that's moved and seconded. We've been able to look at this item. Are there any comments on this item to establish this program? Any questions from board members? Okay, please vote on this item. Student member?
Student board member votes yes.
Votes yes. Okay.
Safe flight.
And the superintendent's consent agenda has already been approved. And now we will go to non-agenda public testimony.
We have two speakers on non-agenda items, Andrea Gallegos and Citizen.
Okay, you will each have 3 minutes, 2 minutes with the green light, and then 1 minute with the yellow light.
So I've been here about 3 hours, so I appreciate you letting me get through my page and a half here.
Okay.
My name
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah. My name is Andrea Gallegos. I'm here on behalf of the parents of Rowan Elementary. As a collective, we're upset about the very drastic time change that has been decided for our families, moving us from a 9 a.m. bell to a very severe 7:30 a.m. start time. We're outraged at how we were informed with this thoughtless letter that went out on a Friday evening. I brought this letter with me, and frankly, it's an embarrassment to whoever drafted it. The entire letter was clearly written for schools moving to a later start time, outlining the many benefits of that, and then in the middle here in bold it says Rowan will be starting at 7:30. That is an hour and a half earlier for us, so it didn't really apply to us. Sorry, I lost my spot. We are confused by this explanation. We're very hurt that you would do this without talking to us first. We're angry that you would injure our tight-knit community this way without any regard to the challenges our school is already facing. When you looked at a piece of paper, or whoever looked at a piece of paper and decided that Rowan only has 290 students, and then said, you know, we're going to do this to the smallest school because that's the least impact and because they have a bus, you missed a lot. And I'm here to explain what you missed and ask that you overturn this decision for the upcoming school year while we work together with you, as in with the Rowan community as well, to work on changing the bell time going forward if that is deemed absolutely necessary. So here's some of the things you missed. Out of our 290 children, 100 of them are special education. More than any other demographic, special education students need uninterrupted and adequate sleep. It's absolutely paramount for the health of these kids, even more so than the high school research suggests. And the research to that effect is endless. So we've placed an unnecessary health risk on this demographic in particular. 70 of these 290 children are pre-K. So more than any other demographic, these children need at least 11 hours of sleep, most of them. It's necessary for every child of that age to have that, whether you're special education or neurotypical. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, the Sleep Council, the World Health Organization, and just about every other leading authority on children's health have made this overwhelmingly clear, backed by really solid research. With the anticipated bus time, which by the way only applies to our special education preschoolers, no other students at Rowan even take the bus. And we were told that the buses were the reason for this change. You now have our very littlest brains going to bed at dinner time in order to get up in time to make it to the bus that they need. And that's when a lot of our parents are even coming home. And they're going to be waking up before the sun. But what's even worse is that this bell time leaves our first session preschoolers without a lunch. We're a Title I school, and that's really important for these kids. The parents are counting on that meal. But they'll be getting out at 10 a.m. now is what we're told to anticipate. We know that our community really counts on that no-cost meal, which is why it's offered in the first place. These children don't deserve to be dragged out of bed, whisked to school with the sunrise, and given nutrition for...
Go ahead and finish. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And given nutrition that someone from this district came to talk to us about and admitted was an unhealthy breakfast and then not get a healthy lunch. 63% of our children have choiced into our school with an understanding of a 9 a.m. bell time. While early start might work great for a lot of families, a lot of the families in Rowan it doesn't. And very few elementary schools offer a later start times for the families where it doesn't work for them. Rowan was one of those few until this mandate came down. 100% of our school received the benefits of a Title I school. So let me be clear about this above all else. This disproportionately affects low-income families. Okay, you've placed a very heavy burden of additional child care on the families with the lowest means. Families who work 2 and 3 jobs per parent in some cases have intensely delicate schedules. Families who now have to choose between leaving a job or being able to manage this drastic change in bell time that has been made for them while silencing their voice in the matter. We were not asked about any of this ahead of time. And furthermore, with with prime time already overburdened, you're realistically leaving children home alone after school, and that's a problem. Studies show time and again the negative outcomes across the board of kids who are left home alone and the effect that has on communities. All of our families have missed the school choice window being opened. We were not allowed to choice out of this option because this came after that window closed. We now only have a late choice option, or late choice priority, I'm sorry. And this just came too late in the school year. This is not fair to our families. We no longer have a chance to be considered for choice elsewhere with the same priority as every other family in the district.
Okay, thank you. One more sentence, if you want to wrap up.
Okay, well, the other main point was that, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
The other main point was that we also have no leadership right now. We have no principal. Our superintendent's on the way out. We have tenured teachers that are about to leave because they themselves can't handle this bell change, and we're not going to have any leadership to guide us through this. So it's really important that we take a look at this.
Thank you very much, and we will ask the superintendent and staff to meet and work with the Rowan parents. I know there's some plans to do that, but we of course want them to meet and address all of these problems that related to this change. Okay, are there any other public speakers?
Citizen, if she's still here. No.
Citizen is not here. Okay, with that, we will adjourn this meeting, and the next regular meeting of the board will be February 4th.